Greetings, dear friend. Join me tonight as we delve into the serene wisdom of Zen masters, uncovering the ancient truths they have imparted to calm our restless minds and achieve true clarity. I invite you to share your local time and where you are tuning in from. I'm about to present a selection of rare and gentle Zen tales, each revealing an often overlooked truth about liberating the mind from its self-imposed shackles of anxiety, overthinking, and dissatisfaction. These stories are not mere fables for the evening. They are profound insights, echoes from enlightened beings who have unveiled a fundamental truth. True rest is not a destination, but a journey that unfolds within. The revered Zen master Dogen expressed, "To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by all things." This evening, we will reflect on how these timeless narratives guide us in gently releasing the self that worries and strives. As we immerse ourselves in these ancient tales, you may sense a soft transformation within. The day's clamor will gradually diminish, and the burdens you've carried will feel lighter. You will be led toward a natural state of profound awareness and serene rest. So, take a moment to settle in. Release the day's tensions. Inhale deeply, and as you exhale, open your heart to the wisdom that has traversed time to reach you in this present moment. Let's commence our exploration with a story that reflects on compassion and the burdens we often impose on ourselves, the weight of the world. In a tranquil monastery surrounded by lush green hills, a young monk named Kenji lived with genuine sincerity and an open heart. Each dawn, he would rise before the sun to meditate, and every evening, he would stroll the monastery grounds in quiet reflection. His commitment to his practice was evident to all who encountered him. Yet, a deep turmoil troubled his spirit. With each passing day, as Kenji consumed news from the outside world or listened to travelers recount tales of distant suffering, his heart became heavier. Wars erupted in lands far away. Children faced hunger in nearby villages. Illness spread through communities, and cruelty seemed to flourish everywhere he looked. The weight of such suffering bore down on him like a mountain, making it challenging to breathe, let alone find the peace his practice promised. One morning, overwhelmed by the anguish, Kenji approached his master, Roshi Tanaka, who was tending to the modest monastery garden. The elderly teacher moved with care among the vegetables, meticulously pulling weeds, his aged hands gentle with each plant. "Master," Kenji began, his voice laden with sorrow, "I feel the suffering of all beings weighing heavily on my heart. I witness wars, hunger, sickness, and the relentless cruelty humans inflict upon one another. This burden is suffocating. How can I find peace when the world is engulfed in such chaos? How can I meditate while others endure such agony?" Master Tanaka lifted his gaze from the radishes, his eyes kind yet penetrating. Without a word, he pointed to a large, smooth riverstone resting at the edge of the garden path. The stone was striking in its simplicity, worn smooth by years of water and weathering, yet it was evidently quite heavy. "Lift it," the master instructed softly. Though confused, Kenji complied. He bent down and, with significant effort, hoisted the stone. It was heavier than it appeared, straining his muscles and causing discomfort almost immediately. His back began to ache. Now, Master Tanaka continued, returning to his weeding. Carry it with you for the remainder of the day. Do not set it down. Bring it to meditation, to meals, to your work, to your rest. Let it accompany you. Kenji followed the directive, though he questioned its purpose. He dragged the stone with him throughout that long day. During morning meditation, his arms quivered under its weight. During meals, he struggled to eat with the stone resting on his lap. While sweeping the temple floors, his movements were clumsy and awkward. By afternoon, his shoulders were in agony. By nightfall, the entire weight of his body ached, and exhaustion enveloped him. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Kenji stumbled back to Master Tanaka, his face pale with fatigue, beads of sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool evening breeze. "Master," he gasped, barely able to articulate his thoughts. "I can't bear it any longer. This stone is shattering my body and spirit. I feel as if I might collapse." Master Tanaka regarded him with boundless compassion, his eyes soft with understanding. "Then set it down," he said gently. Kenji allowed the stone to tumble to the ground with a heavy thud, a sound that reverberated through the still garden. Instantly, a wave of deep relief swept over him. His shoulders relaxed, his breathing became fuller, and he felt as if he could float. The absence of that oppressive weight brought him a new kind of joy. Master Tanaka set aside his gardening tools and faced his student earnestly. "The suffering of the world is akin to that stone," he explained softly. "It is real, and it is burdensome. Your compassion is a beautiful and essential quality. Never abandon it. However, you are not meant to shoulder the weight of all suffering. You are meant to perceive it, to comprehend its weight, to feel its reality deeply, and then to let it go so your hands are free to assist where you can. The Buddha once stated, 'You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger.' This ancient wisdom sheds light on a profound truth regarding compassion and service. When we bear the weight of all suffering in our hearts, we become too encumbered to genuinely assist anyone. Why do we so easily pick up stones that are not ours to bear? Zen Buddhism highlights certain patterns in our conditioned minds that contribute to this suffering. The first is what we might term empathic overwhelm, the inclination to absorb the pain surrounding us until we are paralyzed by its enormity. The second is our ego's desire to be the one who resolves everything, a subtle form of spiritual pride that leads us to believe we should be able to heal every wound. The third is our struggle to differentiate between healthy concern and destructive worry, between compassion and co-suffering. Authentic compassion, the kind that truly makes a difference, requires what Zen refers to as emotional non-attachment. This does not imply becoming indifferent or uncaring. The journey of worth, a Zen story. Cultivating the ability to experience emotions deeply without becoming overwhelmed is essential. It's akin to a physician who treats a patient's wounds without absorbing their pain. We learn to assist from a perspective of clarity rather than emotional entanglement. Reflect on your own experiences. How often do you find yourself endlessly scrolling through news articles, absorbing tales of tragedy and injustice until you feel powerless and drained? How often do you take on the emotional loads of friends, family, or even strangers, carrying their suffering as if it were your own? Each time we do this, we accumulate a burden. The more burdens we bear, the less effective we become in taking meaningful action. Zen Master Suzuki Roshi once said, "You are perfect as you are, but you could use a little improvement." This gentle paradox beautifully encapsulates our relationship with suffering. While we are whole just as we are, we have the capacity to gain wisdom on how to offer help skillfully. The growth doesn't stem from shouldering more burdens, but from discerning when to lift them and when to release them. The practice of compassionate non-attachment begins with understanding the distinction between responding and reacting. When we react to suffering, we often absorb it, compounding pain without creating solutions. In contrast, when we respond, we retain enough clarity and emotional equilibrium to act helpfully. This could involve contributing to causes we believe in, volunteering our time and skills, or simply extending a kind word to someone in need. The Buddha taught us, a single candle can light thousands of others without diminishing its own light. Happiness never lessens by being shared. By nurturing our own inner light instead of extinguishing it by carrying burdens, we become sources of light for others. Our peace transforms into a gift for a chaotic world. Our clarity acts as a guiding light for those who are lost in confusion. This evening, as you contemplate the various burdens you might be carrying, concerns about global events beyond your influence, emotional weights belonging to others, or the pressure of trying to fix what isn't yours to mend, can you sense the relief in setting them down? Can you differentiate between caring and carrying, between compassion and co-suffering? As the Buddha advised, your mission is to discover your purpose and fully devote yourself to it. When we cease to carry burdens that are not ours, we liberate ourselves to grasp the tools that truly belong to us and serve the world from a place of strength instead of exhaustion. As we further explore the wisdom of Zen Buddhism, let's delve into a tale that illustrates recognition and the essence of worth. This is the story of the stone mind. A young monk named Hogan journeyed far from his homeland, traversing mountains and rivers to reach a distinguished monastery in China where the esteemed Master Joshu taught. Hogan had heard tales of the Master's wisdom, how students traveled from all corners of the world to learn from him, and how even a single word from Joshu could ignite enlightenment in a prepared heart. Upon reaching the monastery, Hogan immersed himself in the daily routine with remarkable zeal. He awoke before dawn for meditation, toiled diligently in the gardens and kitchens, studied ancient texts with fervor, and pondered the Dharma talks he had absorbed until late into the night. Days turned into weeks, and Hogan persisted in this fervent practice, eagerly awaiting some form of acknowledgement from the Master. However, months passed, and Master Joshu appeared oblivious to him. During group teachings, the Master's gaze would glide past Hogan as if he were invisible. When Hogan posed questions during Dharma discussions, Joshu would respond curtly and move on to other students. There were no personal interviews, no special guidance, no recognition of his commitment or progress. Other students, some who had arrived after Hogan, seemed to garner more attention, guidance, and time from the Master. As seasons changed, Hogan's initial excitement gradually morphed into frustration and self-doubt. He observed the Master engaging in lengthy discussions with certain disciples, providing detailed guidance to others, and even sharing meals with a select few. Meanwhile, Hogan felt increasingly unseen, as if his presence contributed nothing to the monastery community. His mind began concocting elaborate narratives about his unworthiness. Maybe he wasn't smart enough for Joshu's teachings. Perhaps his previous training had been lacking. Perhaps he lacked some vital spiritual quality that the other students possessed. The more he compared himself to others, the more inadequate he felt. Eventually, unable to endure the sense of insignificance any longer, Hogan approached Master Joshu in the garden, where the wise teacher sat peacefully among the morning blossoms. The master's presence was as tranquil as ever, his focus entirely on the simple act of breathing. "Master," Hogan began, his voice heavy with disappointment and wounded pride, "I have dedicated myself fully for many months. I have tried to be a diligent student, to follow the path faithfully. Yet you have offered me no personal guidance, no special attention, no recognition of my efforts. I feel like nothing more than a worthless stone forgotten in this monastery courtyard. Since I am clearly of no value here, I have decided to leave and seek teachings elsewhere." Master Joshu looked up slowly, his ancient eyes sparkling with what seemed to be amusement. He regarded Hogan for a long moment, then gestured around the courtyard where they sat today. Smooth stones of various sizes were meticulously arranged, creating pathways and borders, supporting structures, and forming the foundation for garden walls. "You claim to be a worthless stone," Joshu said calmly. "Tell me, do you see these other stones here in the courtyard?" "Yes, Master," Hogan replied, puzzled about where this was leading. "Do you rest upon them when you need to unwind?" the master inquired. "No, Master," Hogan answered, still confused. "Do you rearrange them when they upset you? Do you kick them out of frustration? Do you insist they change their shape or color to meet your desires?" "No, Master, certainly not," Hogan said, beginning to sense that something significant was unfolding, though he couldn't quite grasp its entirety. Master Joshu beamed softly, his weathered features reflecting kindness. "Take a closer look at these stones," he urged. "This entire monastery rests upon their strength. They seek nothing in return, no accolades, no acknowledgement, no special treatment. They do not require praise for their service. Yet, they uphold everything around them. The meditation hall stands tall because of them. The kitchen thrives due to their support. The garden paths wind gracefully thanks to their foundation. Without these unassuming stones, this sacred haven would collapse." He paused, allowing his words to settle into Hogan's understanding like seeds in nourishing soil. "You claim to be a stone," Joshu continued. "If you genuinely grasp the essence of being a stone, supporting without craving recognition, serving without demanding acknowledgement, existing with such steadfastness that others can build their practice upon your presence, you would already be enlightened." In that instant, Hogan's mind opened like a fragile shell. He suddenly realized how his relentless pursuit of attention, his yearning for validation, his desire to be exceptional had been the very barriers preventing him from recognizing his true nature. Like the stones underfoot, he had been fortifying the monastery community all along through his earnest practice, his quiet presence, and his simple commitment to the path. Buddha's wisdom tells us that three things cannot remain hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. The deeper lesson here reveals that our intrinsic worth is not contingent upon external recognition or special treatment. Much like the stones sustaining the monastery, our true value resides not in being acknowledged, but in our fundamental ability to support and nurture what truly matters. Why do we grapple so fiercely with the desire for recognition? Zen Buddhism points to several layers of conditioning that foster this pattern. The first is what could be termed ego hunger. This sense of a separate self that perpetually seeks affirmation of its existence and significance through external validation is an insatiable hunger, rooted in the illusion of our separation as beings competing for finite attention and approval. The second is our cultural conditioning regarding achievement and uniqueness. From a young age, we learn to gauge our worth through grades, accolades, praise, and comparative success. This conditioning runs so deep that we often unwittingly transfer it to spiritual practice, subconsciously pursuing enlightenment as yet another form of achievement rather than recognizing it as our innate state. The third factor is our struggle to differentiate between genuine humility and what Zen refers to as spiritual materialism. The subtle ways we can transform even the most profound practices into opportunities for ego enhancement. We long to be perceived as accomplished meditators, devoted learners, or enlightened beings, missing the paradox that true awakening involves the dissolution of the very self that seeks to be awakened. Reflect on your own experiences. How often do you find yourself yearning for recognition at work, desiring appreciation from family, or hoping for acknowledgement of your contributions to community initiatives? Notice the subtle tension that arises when others receive accolades that you believe you deserve, or when your hard work goes unnoticed while someone else takes the credit. This seeking mind generates endless suffering, as it places our peace and self-worth at the mercy of the attention and approval of others. Like Hogan in the narrative, we can expend immense energy striving to be recognized while overlooking the profound value of what we already contribute simply by being present and sincere. Zen Master Dogen wrote, "To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." This act of forgetting does not imply becoming passive or indifferent to our actions. Instead, it signifies letting go of the need to be acknowledged as special or different, which allows us to serve from a place of innate fullness rather than ego-driven emptiness. The stone mind embodies what Buddhism calls beginner's mind, a readiness to be ordinary, to serve without fanfare, to exist with such fundamental stability that others can depend on our presence. This does not entail diminishing our essence or concealing our gifts. Rather, it involves sharing them freely without attachment to how they are received. In practical terms, nurturing stone mind means practicing what Zen refers to as just sitting in our daily lives. When we engage in work, we immerse ourselves fully without seeking applause. When we listen to our friends, we offer our complete attention without needing to be recognized as good listeners. When we meditate, we simply meditate without grasping for extraordinary experiences or insights. As you reflect tonight on the various ways you might be seeking recognition or feeling overlooked, can you sense the relief that comes from relinquishing the need to be special? Can you feel the inherent dignity that surfaces when you cease performing for approval and instead share your gifts freely, like stones supporting a temple? As the Buddha taught, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. The most profound teachings often emerge not from those who chase the spotlight, but from those who, like stones, uphold the whole with quiet strength and unwavering presence. Now, let us delve into a story exploring identity and the masks we wear in various roles. This tale unfolds during the governor's visit. In the historic capital of Kyoto, where cherry blossoms adorned the rivers and traditional temples coexisted with bustling market streets, there lived a man occupying one of the highest offices in the region. Governor Nakamura was charged with the welfare of thousands of citizens, the execution of imperial policies, and the preservation of peace across his extensive province. His days were filled with formal ceremonies, significant decisions, and meetings with other officials who addressed him with elaborate titles and deep bows. The weight of his position was both an honor and a burden. Each morning, servants adorned him in the finest silk robes, appropriate for his rank. Every interaction was navigated through layers of protocol and political considerations. Each word he uttered was meticulously chosen for its potential impact on his reputation and effectiveness. He was known as Your Excellency, Honorable Governor, Lord Nakamura, a title that elevated him while simultaneously distancing him from genuine human connection. Despite his worldly triumphs, Governor Nakamura felt an increasing void within his heart. The formal interactions, the relentless display of authority, and the separation his status created between himself and others left him yearning for something more genuine. He had heard tales of a Zen master named Kaiyu, whose insights were said to pierce through all pretense and speak directly to the essence of humanity. After several months of reflection, the governor resolved to seek out this sage. On a tranquil morning, Governor Nakamura set out for Master Ketchu's modest hermitage located on the city's outskirts. He was accompanied by his customary entourage of attendants and guards, as protocol dictated. His elaborate silk robes whispered as he walked, and the governor's official seal sparkled in the dawning light. Following proper etiquette, the governor's chief attendant went ahead to announce his master's presence. He knocked respectfully on the unadorned wooden door, and when Master Kitsu emerged, he bowed deeply. "Esteemed master," the attendant proclaimed with formal precision. "My lord, the highly regarded governor of this province, administrator of imperial justice, and protector of the populace, has come to seek your wisdom. He humbly requests an audience with you." Master Kaiyu, a small elderly figure clad in simple brown garments, listened to this elaborate introduction with an unchanging expression. Once the attendant finished, the master looked up calmly and responded without a moment's pause, "I have no interest in such a person. These titles hold no meaning for me. Tell him to leave." The attendant's face reddened with confusion and humiliation. Never in his years of service had he encountered anyone refusing to meet with the governor. He returned to where Governor Nakamura awaited, his head bowed in shame as he conveyed the master's words. Yet instead of feeling insulted or furious, something shifted within the governor's awareness. In that instant of rejection, he recognized something profound. The master had not rejected him personally. He had dismissed the elaborate veneer of titles and roles that distanced individuals from authentic connection. Governor Nakamura instantly understood what was necessary. He turned to his attendants and guards, gently dismissing them. He shed his ornate outer robes, leaving only simple undergarments. He washed away the formal cosmetics from his face and tied back his hair in a plain style. Then, stripped of adornments, he approached the hermitage once more. This time, he knocked on the door himself. When Master Kitsu appeared, the man formerly known as Your Excellency bowed humbly and spoke in a quiet, personal tone that had not been heard by others in years. "Master," he said simply, "I am Dado. I have come seeking guidance on the path to understanding. Would you be willing to converse with me?" Upon hearing this humble introduction, using his personal name instead of his official title, Master Ketchu's stern demeanor instantly transformed into a warm, welcoming smile. His eyes crinkled with genuine joy, and he opened his arms in a gesture of embrace. "Ah, Dado," he exclaimed with evident delight. "Please come in right away. I have been looking forward to meeting you. Let us sit together and share tea while we discuss the Dharma." The transformation in the Master's reception was complete and immediate. Where moments before there had been a cold rejection of pompous formality, now there was a warm welcome for genuine humanity. As the Buddha observed, no matter how many sacred words you read or speak, what good will they do you if you do not act upon them? What emerges from this narrative is a profound lesson about the distinction between our essential nature and the roles we inhabit in the world. Why do we become so entangled in our social roles and titles that we lose touch with our authentic selves? Zen Buddhism reveals several layers of conditioning that contribute to this phenomenon. The first is what we might term role identification. This gradual process leads us to believe that we are the positions we hold rather than human beings temporarily occupying those roles. Over time, we can become so intertwined with our professional identities, family roles, or social standings that we forget the simple person beneath all the layers. The second aspect is our society's emphasis on hierarchical recognition. We learn early on that specific titles, accomplishments, and positions command respect and attention. This conditioning can become so pervasive that we unconsciously equate our worth as human beings with these external markers of success. We begin to introduce ourselves through our achievements rather than our essence. The third element is what Zen refers to as face saving, our attachment to maintaining a specific image or reputation. The more invested we are in how others perceive our roles, the more rigid and defensive we become about preserving those personas. We construct elaborate walls of formality and protocol that, while perhaps necessary for certain functions, can isolate us from authentic human connection. Reflect on your own life. Notice how differently you feel and behave at work compared to at home or when with close friends. While some adjustment to context is natural and appropriate, where might you be hiding behind professional titles, social roles, or family positions in ways that prevent others from truly knowing you? This pattern manifests in subtle ways throughout our daily interactions. We might introduce ourselves as Dr. Smith instead of Mary, highlighting credentials over personhood. Our interactions with service workers may differ when we are dressed professionally compared to casually. We may find our speech changes depending on whether we are in positions of authority or seeking assistance. The lesson here isn't that social roles are inherently problematic. Societies require governors, hospitals need doctors, and families need parents. Instead, it's about staying aware of the difference between the temporary roles we play and our enduring humanity. Master Kaiu wasn't rejecting governance or suggesting that social organization is worthless. He was highlighting the spiritual risk of becoming so identified with external roles that we lose access to our authentic selves. Zen teacher Alan Watts wrote, "We are living in a culture entirely hypnotized by the illusion of time." We might add that we are also hypnotized by the illusion of fixed identity. We often define ourselves by our job roles, relationships, and social standings, yet these are merely temporary facades we adopt as we navigate our shared human experience. The concept of what we might term essential connection involves recognizing and engaging with the core humanity in ourselves and in others, irrespective of the roles we embody. This does not imply disregarding social norms or professional boundaries. Rather, it emphasizes awareness of the individual who exists both within and outside these frameworks. When Governor Nakamura embraced his identity as Dado, he did not forfeit his responsibilities or his ability to serve his community effectively. Instead, he accessed a depth of understanding and connection that enriched his service, rooting it in authentic humanity rather than mere authoritative power. As you contemplate the myriad roles and identities you inhabit throughout your day, can you perceive the essential person that lies beneath all those titles? Can you envision what it might be like to engage with others and be engaged from this authentic place of humanity, rather than through the lenses of social hierarchies? As the Buddha expressed, ultimately, three things hold significance: how deeply you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of what is not meant for you. The titles and roles we occupy are among the elements we must relinquish in the end. However, the love and gentleness we infuse into our roles emanate from our true nature and remain with us indefinitely. Now, let's explore a narrative about surrendering and the unforeseen liberation that arises from loss. This is no water, no moon. Sister Kayono had devoted many years to practicing Zen meditation at a mountain monastery, where the atmosphere was thin and pristine, and the silence was punctuated only by the whisper of the wind through the pines. She was acknowledged by her peers for her sincere commitment, her disciplined daily habits, and her genuine aspiration to awaken to truth. Every morning before dawn, she would engage in meditation. Each day, she would work diligently in the monastery's gardens or kitchen. Each evening, she would delve into ancient texts and reflect on her teacher's Dharma discussions. Yet, despite years of earnest dedication and countless hours of meditation, enlightenment seemed to evade her grasp. She had absorbed all the classical koans, memorized key sutras, and could engage in discussions on Buddhist philosophy with significant insight. Yet the unmistakable realization her teachers described, that sudden awakening to her true essence, remained out of reach. Other monks in the monastery had experienced moments of breakthrough. She had seen the joy and transformation that illuminated their faces when understanding dawned. She had heard their heartfelt gratitude towards the teacher and their accounts of perceiving reality with completely new perspectives. But for Kayono, her practice felt laborious, understanding remained intellectual, and the promised freedom appeared to be an abstract idea rather than a tangible experience. As the seasons changed and years passed, a subtle desperation began to infiltrate her practice. She extended her meditation hours, believing that more sitting would trigger the breakthrough she longed for. She scrutinized her methods, questioning whether she was misapplying something, missing critical guidance, or lacking some essential trait necessary for awakening. The more she strived to attain enlightenment, the more elusive it seemed. One evening in late autumn, after a particularly long day of an intensive meditation retreat, Kayono felt drained in both body and spirit. The monastery had provided water for evening tea, and she had filled an old bamboo bucket from the well. This bucket was a simple yet beautiful artifact, woven from bamboo strips that were carefully tied together with natural fibers. It had served the monastery for many years, transporting countless gallons of water from the well to the kitchen. As Kayono carried the filled bucket back towards the monastery structures, she noticed how perfectly the full moon was mirrored in the still water. The reflection was so vivid and complete that she paused for a moment to admire its beauty. The silvery glow danced softly as she moved, creating a flowing meditation on the interplay between reality and reflection, between the actual moon above and its image below. However, the old bucket had reached the end of its functional life. The bamboo strips had dried and loosened with years of service, and the binding fibers had gradually weakened. As Kayono meandered through the moonlit courtyard, captivated by the shimmering reflection of the moon in the water, the inevitable occurred. Suddenly, without warning, the bottom of the bucket completely gave way. The bamboo strips parted, the binding snapped, and the bucket fell apart in her grasp. In an instant, the water gushed out onto the stone path, splattering her robes and vanishing into the spaces between the courtyard stones. With the water gone, the moon's reflection disappeared as if it had never been there. In that moment of unexpected loss, as she watched the water fade away, saw the moon's reflection vanish, and felt the sturdy bucket break into fragments in her hands, something profound shifted within Kayono's consciousness. The very thing she had been desperately pursuing, the enlightenment she yearned for through years of diligent practice, suddenly surfaced in the act of complete surrender. She realized in a moment of clarity that was more certain than anything she had ever comprehended intellectually. The enlightenment she sought was akin to the moon's reflection on water, beautiful and captivating, yet ultimately a reflection of something already present. When she ceased trying to cling to that reflection, when the vessel of her grasping mind crumbled like the old bucket, what remained was not an image of awakening, but the awareness of being awake itself. Standing in the moonlit courtyard, with shattered bamboo strips in her hands and water seeping into the earth at her feet, Kayono burst into laughter. The sound resonated off the monastery walls, a sound filled with profound relief and joy. That evening, she penned a poem to express her newfound understanding. With this and that, I struggled to keep the bucket intact, and then everything fell apart. In the absence of water, the moon cannot be seen in it. An ancient Buddhist saying reminds us, "You are whole just as you are, yet there's room for some improvement." This narrative reveals a core paradox underlying the quest for spiritual awakening. The more fervently we chase enlightenment, the more we reinforce the separateness that awakening seeks to dissolve. Why do we find it so difficult to let go, even when clinging leads to anguish? Zen Buddhism identifies several deep-rooted patterns in our conditioned minds. The first is what might be termed the attainment mindset. The idea that peace, joy, or fulfillment resides somewhere other than in the present moment leads to unending pursuit, forever striving for a future state while overlooking the completeness of our current experience. Next is our fixation on methods and techniques. similar to Cho attempting to maintain the bucket with various means. We often become overly absorbed in our spiritual routines, meditation practices, or philosophical insights, confusing the pointing finger for the moon itself. These practices turn into another form of grasping instead of avenues for release. Thirdly, Zen refers to this attachment as Buddha sickness. We become fixated on the concept of enlightenment, treating it as an object to attain rather than recognizing it as the awareness that is already in pursuit. We construct intricate mental images of what awakening should resemble, how it should feel, and what powers it may bring, investing years in trying to achieve our own ideals. Reflect on your own journey of seeking, whether for spiritual insight, career advancement, relational fulfillment, or personal joy. Observe how the intensity of desire often seems to repel what we aim for. Job interviews tend to go better when we aren't desperately seeking the role. Relationships thrive more effortlessly when we are not fixating on specific outcomes. Even simple tasks, like recalling a forgotten name, become easier when we cease straining and allow the answer to surface naturally. This concept extends deeply into spiritual practices. The awakening that traditions like Zen hint at is not a destination to reach, but the very awareness from which all experiences arise and fade away. It's not something we can grasp because it is what we inherently are. It's not a place we can travel to because it's where we already exist. The moon's reflection in Cho's bucket symbolizes all the spiritual experiences, insights, and states of consciousness we might gather during our practice. While these can be profound and valuable, they are mere reflections of reality, not reality itself. When we mistake them for the ultimate goal, we resemble someone attempting to catch the moon by seizing its reflection in the water. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki stated, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few." Kyono's breakthrough did not come from amassing more spiritual knowledge or refining techniques, but through the total disintegration of her attempts to keep the bucket intact. When her expert mindset, filled with strategies, expectations, and spiritual aspirations, crumbled like the old bucket, what remained was the unadorned awareness that had always been there. The practice illuminated by this tale is not to cease meditating or to abandon genuine spiritual effort, but to approach all practice with a gentle touch. We can meditate without clinging to extraordinary experiences. We can engage with wisdom teachings without collecting insights as trophies. We can participate in spiritual communities without measuring our progress against others. Most crucially, we can start recognizing when we are trying to hold the bucket together, when we are exerting effort to maintain certain mental states, forcing spiritual experiences, or reaching for future achievements. In those instances, we can practice what Zen refers to as just sitting, simply being present without an agenda, allowing whatever arises to naturally come and go. As you reflect on what you might be grasping for or striving to achieve in your own life, can you feel the relief that might accompany letting go? What would persist if you ceased trying to hold on to your ideas of who you ought to be, what you should achieve, or how your life should unfold? As the Buddha taught, relinquishing our grip grants us freedom, and freedom is the sole condition for happiness. Genuine freedom does not stem from acquiring our desires, but from releasing our attachment to desire itself. When the water spills and the reflection fades, What remains is the moon itself, radiant, whole, and closer than we ever thought possible. Let's delve into a story that highlights the extraordinary aspects of everyday life. This is the true marvel. Master Bank was celebrated throughout Japan for his straightforward and unwavering approach to Zen teaching. Unlike many teachers who depended on intricate rituals, complex philosophical debates, or dramatic displays of spiritual prowess, Bank had a unique ability to guide individuals toward the simple truths already evident in their immediate experiences. His monastery drew students from various Buddhist traditions and intrigued visitors who had heard tales of his unconventional wisdom. One day, a practitioner from a different Buddhist lineage visited Bank's monastery. This visitor had dedicated years to a teacher renowned for his supernatural abilities and miraculous feats. He had witnessed his master performing seemingly impossible acts, healing the ill with a mere touch, conjuring objects from thin air, and showcasing psychic abilities that defied conventional understanding. These experiences had instilled in the visitor a profound reverence for the spiritual path and a strong confidence in his teacher's enlightenment. During the evening Dharma talk, as Master Bank sat calmly before the gathered community, the visitor could hardly contain his eagerness to share the miraculous talents of his own teacher. When the formal discussion concluded and the floor opened for questions, the visitor stood up with enthusiasm. "Master Bank," he began, his voice brimming with admiration and perhaps a trace of challenge, "I must share with you the extraordinary powers of my teacher." Our founder was an extraordinary individual, a living embodiment of virtue capable of performing astonishing miracles. Just last month, I witnessed him inscribe a sacred name in the air above a vast river, the holy letters glowing brightly in the sky for all to witness. The entire community was enveloped in awe and reverence. Can you replicate such miraculous acts? Do you possess the power to showcase the extent of your realization? The visitor settled in, evidently anticipating an impressive reply from Bank, perhaps yearning for a display of the supernatural or at least narratives of equally remarkable abilities. The peers in the hall shifted their focus to their instructor, intrigued to see how he would tackle this unspoken challenge. Master Bank remained utterly still for a few moments, his demeanor neither defensive nor dismissive, but simply present and engaged. When he finally uttered words, his tone was soft and straightforward, devoid of any hint of rivalry or superiority. "Perhaps your teacher is indeed capable of such miracles," Bankai stated with calm assurance. "I have no doubt regarding what you have perceived, and I hold no criticism of such displays. However, I must candidly express that this is not my path. Such abilities do not intrigue me, and I do not seek them." The visitor appeared somewhat disheartened and pressed on. "But Master, if you cannot perform such wonders, what then sets your teachings apart? What is your miracle? How can we ascertain that you have attained true realization?" Master Bank's eyes sparkled with a gentle humor that often accompanies deep truths. He gazed directly at his inquisitor with complete sincerity and responded, "My miracle is this. When I feel hunger, I eat. When I experience thirst, I drink. When fatigue strikes, I sleep. When spring arrives, I take note of the blooming flowers. When winter comes, I observe the falling snow. This is my miracle, to be entirely present for the simple truth of each moment." The hall descended into profound silence as the weight of this teaching settled in the minds of everyone present. The visitor, who had arrived expecting supernatural displays, found himself faced with something far more challenging: the invitation to acknowledge the miraculous nature of his own immediate experience. The Buddha imparted, "There are only two mistakes one can make on the path to truth: not going all the way and not starting." The essence of this lesson resides in recognizing that the miracle we seek is not concealed in extraordinary displays, but instead reveals itself in the full acceptance of ordinary experiences. Why do we often overlook the miraculous quality of our daily lives? Zen Buddhism uncovers various layers of conditioning that blind us to what is perpetually available. The first is what we might term spiritual materialism, the unconscious belief that enlightenment must be dramatic, supernatural, or visibly impressive. We tend to envision that awakened consciousness should yield extraordinary powers, mystical insights, or at least some evident signs that differentiate the enlightened from the mundane. The second is our acclimatization to the familiar. The mind often disregards as commonplace those experiences that are most consistently accessible: breathing, seeing, tasting, feeling, the sheer fact of awareness itself. We become so accustomed to these fundamental miracles that we cease to recognize them as miraculous at all. It's as if we are fish who have forgotten the water in which we swim. The third is our cultural conditioning towards complexity and achievement. We inhabit a society that prizes the rare, the difficult, and the spectacular. This conditioning permeates our spiritual pursuits, leading us to believe that profound truths must be intricate, esoteric, or only attainable through years of specialized training. The notion that ultimate reality could be as simple as feeling hunger and eating challenges our entire perception of what spiritual achievement should resemble. Reflect on your own experience right now as you interact with these words. Notice the miracle of vision, how marks on a page or patterns of light on a screen somehow transform into meaning within your consciousness. Observe the enigma of understanding, how abstract ideas emerge in awareness effortlessly. Feel the rhythm of your breath that continues without your command, the heartbeat that sustains life moment by moment. These occurrences are so ordinary that we typically overlook them completely, yet each one embodies a profound mystery that no science can entirely elucidate. How does consciousness emerge from matter? How does awareness recognize itself? How does meaning arise from patterns? These inquiries point to the miraculous essence of the most fundamental aspects of existence. Master Bank's miracle of eating when hungry and drinking when thirsty highlights what Zen refers to as natural functioning, the spontaneous responsiveness of awakened consciousness to the needs of each moment. This does not imply being reactive or impulsive, but rather cultivating such an intimate attunement to present reality that appropriate action arises naturally, unencumbered by excessive thought, second-guessing, or spiritual ambition. Zen teacher Dogen articulated, "To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad things." When we cease striving to be spiritual in some extraordinary manner, when we relinquish the pursuit of remarkable experiences, we open ourselves to be completely present for the myriad small miracles that comprise each day. This teaching does not diminish the significance of committed practice, intensive meditation, or earnest study of wisdom traditions. Instead, it underscores the ultimate goal of all such endeavors, not to acquire supernatural abilities or amass spiritual experiences, but to become so naturally responsive to reality that our actions flow effortlessly from clear perception rather than from ego-driven desires. The miracle of eating when hungry extends to every facet of daily life. It signifies speaking when necessary and remaining silent when words are superfluous. It means engaging with full attention when work is required and resting completely when rest is due. It entails feeling emotions fully as they arise, without suppressing them or being overwhelmed by them. Embracing the wonders of everyday life. In essence, nurturing a sense of wonder for the everyday miracles begins with what Zen refers to as the beginner's mind. This means engaging with familiar situations as if you are experiencing them anew. Imagine savoring a meal with full awareness, focusing not just on the taste but on the remarkable interplay of sensory perceptions, memories, and the joy that makes eating such a rich experience. Pay close attention to a chat with a friend, marveling at the enigmatic process through which ideas from one mind are conveyed to another. Recognize the miracle of sleep, how consciousness fades each night only to be reborn each morning. Witness the daily revival of awareness from the small death of unconsciousness. Observe how dreams emerge from nothingness and return to the void, crafting entire realms that feel utterly real during the experience. As you get ready for bed tonight, can you appreciate the miracle inherent in this simple shift from wakefulness to slumber? Can you sense the extraordinary within the mundane rhythm of your breath? The sensation of your body sinking into stillness, releasing the day's activities and worries? As the Buddha taught, if you genuinely loved yourself, you would not inflict harm upon yourself through negative thoughts. The most profound expression of self-love may be the simple acknowledgement of the miracle of your own life. Not the idealized version of who you could become, but the breathing, feeling, conscious being that you are at this moment. True miracles do not contravene natural laws. Rather, they are recognitions of the fundamental law of consciousness itself. The enigmatic reality that the universe has somehow become aware of itself through your perception, experiences itself through your senses, and recognizes itself through your consciousness. When you eat to satisfy your hunger, you are partaking in the cosmic miracle of life sustaining itself. This is your miracle too. As we continue our exploration of Zen Buddhism's wisdom, let us delve into a story that reveals a fundamental truth that surrounds us yet often goes unnoticed. This is the narrative of the fish and the ocean. In the expansive depths of the Pacific, where sunlight streams through layers of blue and green and coral gardens sway with the currents, a young fish swam restlessly through familiar waters. Surrounded by the marvels of ocean life, schools of shimmering fish gliding like liquid silver, sea anemones swaying in the flow, and the rhythmic motion of waves far above, the young fish was troubled by an incessant question. One day, the young fish approached an ancient sea turtle, whose shell bore the marks and wisdom of countless journeys, and asked earnestly, "Wise one, I keep hearing other sea creatures speak of something they call the ocean. They talk about it with such reverence, as if it's the most crucial thing in existence. But I've searched everywhere, and I cannot find this ocean. What is this enigmatic thing everyone discusses?" The old turtle, with eyes deep and patient like tidal pools, regarded the young fish with gentle amusement. "Little one, the turtle replied in a voice smoothed by years of storms and calm. The ocean is what surrounds you on all sides, at every moment. The young fish looked around in confusion, darting left and right, swimming up toward the distant surface and down toward the sandy bottom. But I don't see anything around me. There's nothing here except water, fish, plants, and rocks. Where is this ocean you mention? Why can't I see it? The turtle settled more comfortably on a soft bed of kelp, aware that this was a teaching moment that required patience. Of course you cannot see it, dear friend, the turtle explained. The ocean exists both inside and outside of you. You were born in the ocean. You breathe the ocean. You are sustained by the ocean. And one day, you will return to the ocean. The ocean flows through your gills and around your body just as naturally as your scales cover your skin. It is so integral to you that it has become invisible. The young fish paused, beginning to grasp something vast and essential that had always been there but remained unnamed. You mean this water I swim through is the ocean? Yes, the turtle confirmed. You have never been separate from it, not for a single moment of your existence. As the Buddha observed, all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with awareness. This ancient wisdom sheds light on our relationship with the flow of existence that permeates everything yet often goes unnoticed in our daily lives. The story reveals a profound lesson about spiritual blindness. Like the fish who cannot see the ocean, we are immersed in the sacred yet fail to recognize it because it is too close, too constant, too fundamental to our existence to be perceived as separate from ourselves. Why do we find it difficult to perceive this universal flow that supports and encompasses us? Zen Buddhism suggests that we have a tendency to seek the extraordinary while overlooking the ordinary. We assume that spiritual truths must be dramatic, mystical, or distinct from our everyday experiences. We search for the divine in burning bushes while overlooking its presence in our morning coffee, in the breath entering our lungs, in the simple fact of awareness itself. This flow expresses itself in everything we encounter: the changing seasons, the cycles of sleep and wakefulness, the rhythm of our heartbeat, the way thoughts arise and fade in consciousness. It is the organizing principle behind both the spirals of galaxies and the unfurling of fern leaves, the same pattern manifesting at every level of existence. Consider how often throughout your day you might catch a glimpse of this underlying flow without recognizing it. The way traffic organizes itself naturally without a central controller. The way conversations find their own timing and rhythm. The way your body breathes without conscious effort. The way solutions to problems seem to arise from beyond deliberate thought. These are all expressions of this flow working through apparent chaos to create spontaneous order. Zen teacher Alan Watts once said, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth." The flow is similar. It cannot be grasped or contained because we are manifestations of it rather than separate observers of it. Every attempt to understand the Tao through conceptual analysis resembles a fish trying to leap out of the ocean to observe it from an external perspective. This does not imply that the Tao is simply a philosophical notion. It represents the most immediate and practical reality, the intelligence that orchestrates the trillions of cells within your body, the awareness where all thoughts and sensations arise. the life force that breathes life into everything from towering redwoods to microscopic bacteria. In the realm of Chinese philosophy, the symbol for Tao literally signifies the way or the path. However, this is not a path that we traverse towards some distant goal. It is the path that moves through us, the way in which reality unfolds moment by moment, without necessitating our oversight or governance. Laozi wrote, "The Tao that can be articulated is not the eternal Tao." Yet here we are, utilizing language to indicate something that transcends words. This is the exquisite paradox of spiritual teachings. We must rely on the finite to suggest the infinite, knowing that the finger pointing at the moon is never the moon itself. As you feel the breath flowing in and out of your body tonight without conscious effort, can you perceive the Tao manifesting through this simple miracle? Can you recognize within this automatic process the same intelligence that orchestrates the movements of planets and the changing of seasons? The Buddha instructed, "Look within. You are the Buddha." You are not separate from the vast ocean of existence any more than a wave is distinct from the sea. By acknowledging this fundamental interconnectedness, we cease to search for the Tao and begin to live as its conscious manifestation. As we progress on our exploration of Zen Buddhism's wisdom, let us delve into a tale about fulfillment and the essence of desire. This is the journey of the stonecutter. Nestled in the mountain villages, there lived a humble stonecutter who had inadvertently uncovered the secret to happiness. Each morning, he would navigate winding trails to the quarries, his tools resting on his shoulders. While working among the stones, he would sing ancient mountain songs that resonated throughout the valleys. Although deemed poor by societal standards, residing in a modest hut with few belongings, the stonecutter wanted nothing more than what he possessed. His simple existence felt whole, with the rhythm of his labor, the splendor of the mountains, and the satisfaction of diligent work. His heart was free of worries. One day, he was summoned to work on the grand estate of a wealthy nobleman. As he approached the property, his eyes widened in or at the opulence before him. Marble columns stretched towards the heavens. Gardens lay out in flawless symmetry. For the first time, the stonecutter felt the sharp sting of desire disrupt his contentment. "If only I were wealthy," he lamented. "Then I wouldn't have to toil and sweat for my living as I do now." To his astonishment, a voice emerged from the stones. "Your wish is granted. From now on, anything you desire will be yours." He returned home that evening to find his humble abode transformed into a mansion as splendid as the nobleman's. Overwhelmed with happiness, he discarded his tools and began to relish the affluent lifestyle of the elite. However, one scorching afternoon, while gazing out from his ornate window, he witnessed the king's royal procession passing by. The king reclined in cool shade, surrounded by noblemen and attendants, appearing tranquil and powerful amidst the common heat. "How I wish I were a king," he thought, and instantly found himself lounging on silk cushions within the royal carriage. Yet, the carriage turned out to be warmer than he anticipated. Even through thick walls, the sun's heat permeated mercilessly. "I wish I were the sun," he proclaimed, and suddenly found himself radiating warmth and light across the universe. As the sun, he felt magnificent and all-powerful until dark storm clouds gathered, completely obscuring his rays. "I wish to be a cloud." And so, he became an enormous storm cloud, reveling in his ability to eclipse the sun. But as he transformed into rain, he encountered a massive rock that obstructed his path entirely. A mere rock is more powerful than I. I wish to be a rock. Suddenly, he stood tall upon the mountainside, feeling he had achieved true permanence. But shortly thereafter, he heard chipping sounds at his base. Looking down, he saw a diminutive human figure chipping away at the stone, a tiny being more powerful than me. I want to be human again. And so, he found himself once again a stonecutter, traversing familiar mountain paths. Yet now, something had shifted. As he shaped the stones and felt the mountain breezes, his heart brimmed with profound contentment. His song returned, richer than before, for he had learned to embrace who he truly was. The Buddha once stated, "Health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth." This ancient wisdom sheds light on the unending cycle of desire that prevents us from recognizing the abundance already present in our lives. Why do we pursue varying conditions, always convinced that happiness lies in the next transformation? Each desire attained only unveils the subsequent desire, perpetuating a cycle of dissatisfaction. The stonecutter's journey highlights the futility of seeking happiness through external situations. Reflect on your own versions of this cycle. I'll be happy when I receive a promotion, only to discover new pressures. I'll be content with more wealth, only to find that greater riches come with new concerns. Each accomplishment reveals the next summit to conquer. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi remarked, "Each of you is perfect as you are, although you can use a little enhancement." This paradox reveals the essence of contentment, the capacity to fully embrace what is while still engaging wholeheartedly with the natural changes of life. The stonecutter's ultimate transformation did not involve becoming something greater, but rather developing an appreciation for what he had always been. His work remained unchanged, yet his relationship with life underwent a complete transformation. Contentment is not located in experiencing different situations, but in bringing a different awareness to whatever experiences come forth. Tonight, as you observe the mind's habitual reaching towards what is absent, can you try the stonecutter's final wisdom? Can you discover the song that arises when you cease striving to be anything other than who you are? As the Buddha taught, contentment is natural wealth. Luxury is artificial poverty. The most profound transformation is not about becoming something new, but rather recognizing the inherent wholeness of our being. Our next narrative unfolds the contrast between mere knowledge and genuine awareness. This is the story of a teacher who believed he had reached his destination. After a decade of rigorous training with various masters, immersing himself in numerous texts, and wholly dedicating himself to Zen practice, a monk named Tenno finally attained what he had sought for so long: acknowledgement as a qualified teacher. His grasp of Buddhist philosophy was deep. His meditation practice was profound and stable, and his ability to mentor others had been tried and validated. He received formal recognition that he was ready to impart the Dharma and guide others along the path to enlightenment. Filled with pride in his achievement and eager to learn from one of the most esteemed masters of his time, Tenno set out to visit the illustrious Zen master Nan. The elder teacher's reputation for wisdom and insight was legendary in the area, and Tenno anticipated engaging in profound Dharma discussions and possibly refining his understanding further. It was a rainy day when Tenno embarked on his journey to Nanan's temple. The paths were muddy and treacherous. Puddles mirrored the overcast sky, and the persistent rain compelled him to carry an umbrella to stay dry. Upon arriving at the temple, he carefully took off his wooden clogs and set them on the sheltered porch alongside his umbrella, adhering to tradition. He adjusted his outer robes, centered himself properly, and entered the temple to meet the revered master. Nanan welcomed him warmly, bowing with the respect owed to a fellow teacher while maintaining the dignity of his greater experience. They settled together in the modest receiving room, and Tenno anticipated their dialogue to delve into intricate doctrinal points, subtle nuances of meditation techniques, or perhaps the challenges of mentoring students. However, after the initial pleasantries, Nanan posed what seemed to be an absurdly mundane question. "I noticed you left your wooden clogs and umbrella on the porch when you entered. Can you tell me, did you place your umbrella to the left or to the right of your shoes?" Tenno was utterly taken aback. Of all the significant topics they could explore, why was this esteemed master inquiring about such a trivial detail? He struggled to remember the moment he had organized his belongings, realizing with growing unease that he could not recall. He had been so absorbed in the significance of this meeting, so preoccupied with the impressive discussion he anticipated, that he had performed the simple act of arranging his belongings with complete unconsciousness. "I don't know," Tenno admitted, his voice barely a whisper. In that moment of revelation, the full weight of his ignorance dawned on him. Here he was, a certified teacher of mindfulness and awareness, yet he could not even recall a simple action he had performed mere minutes before. Nanan smiled with boundless compassion, not mockery. "Then you have not yet reached full awareness," he stated gently. "A person who is truly awake engages fully with every moment, every action, every detail of experience. The way you organize your belongings reflects the same quality of attention you bring to meditation, to teaching, to all of life." In that instant, Tenno's pride in his achievements crumbled, replaced by a humbling realization of how much deeper his practice needed to evolve. He recognized that true awareness isn't something that can be attained once and held forever. It is a quality of attention that must be cultivated and sustained in every single moment, in both the most mundane activities and the most exalted spiritual practices. Without hesitation, Tenno requested to become Nanan's student. For the subsequent decade, he studied under the master's guidance, learning to bring the same level of conscious attention to placing his shoes that he applied during formal meditation, to treat the arrangement of an umbrella with the same reverence he accorded sacred texts. When he finally departed from Nanan's temple, he had transformed into a different kind of teacher, one who recognized that enlightenment is not a destination but a way of traveling, not an achievement but a continuous practice of complete presence. As the Buddha observed, if you wish to understand your past, examine your current condition. If you want to predict your future, analyze your present actions. The essence of this story is the understanding that genuine spiritual growth is measured not by our peak experiences but by the quality of attention we dedicate to ordinary moments. Why do we assume that enlightenment is confined to special circumstances, formal practices, or elevated states of consciousness? Zen Buddhism teaches that awakening is found precisely in our capacity to be fully present for whatever is unfolding in the moment, whether it's sitting in meditation or simply placing an umbrella beside our shoes. Tenno's oversight was common among spiritual practitioners. He had mastered the ability to be mindful during designated practice periods, but had not yet learned to extend that same quality of awareness to daily activities. He could be present while meditating but unconscious while managing simple tasks. This division between spiritual and ordinary activities is one of the most subtle traps on the path to awakening. We often believe that consciousness is something we activate during meditation and deactivate during routine tasks. Yet true practice integrates awareness into every facet of life. Reflect on your own daily routine. How present are you while brushing your teeth, brewing coffee, or putting on your shoes? Do you approach these tasks with the same level of attention you might apply to more significant endeavors? The disparity between formal practice and informal practice often reveals where our awareness needs to expand. Zen Master Dogen taught, "Practice and enlightenment are one." This means that the quality of consciousness we nurture in any moment serves as both the path and the destination. There is no divide between cultivating awareness and being aware. Each moment presents a complete opportunity for awakening. Nanen's inquiry was not merely about umbrellas and shoes. It was an exploration of whether Tenno's spiritual development had permeated the very fabric of his daily existence. Could he sustain the same awareness while engaging in automatic behaviors that he had brought into conscious spiritual practice? The Buddha stated, "Mindfulness is the route to the eternal. Negligence leads to demise. Those who practice mindfulness do not perish. Those who are negligent are as though they are already dead." True vitality is discovered in total presence, and this presence can be nurtured in any task, regardless of how trivial or ordinary. Reflect deeply on your own connection between structured practice and everyday living. Where do you assign significance to specific tasks while others are executed on autopilot? This isn't about obsessively fixating on every minute detail, but about realizing that the same capacity for presence that aids us in meditation can enhance every facet of our existence. The irony is that the most mundane moments often provide the greatest chances for enlightenment. When we sit for formal meditation, we anticipate being mindful. However, when we are simply tidying up or conducting daily chores, we have the opportunity to reveal whether our practice has genuinely taken root or is still limited to exceptional situations. In Zen monasteries, practitioners learn that washing dishes holds as much sanctity as reciting sutras, and that sweeping floors is as crucial as engaging in philosophical study. This is not because these tasks are inherently significant, but because the level of consciousness we apply to any activity shapes its spiritual importance. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "Washing dishes isn't solely about cleaning dishes. It's also about living fully in every moment." This highlights the essential teaching that Nanen imparted to Tenno. Each action is a chance to practice complete presence. The Master's inquiry unveiled that Tenno's years of training had honed his ability for awareness during designated practice times, but had yet to merge that awareness into the fluidity of daily living. He could maintain consciousness when he chose, but had not yet learned to make awareness his default condition. This merging is what separates true spiritual maturity from mere spiritual knowledge. It's relatively simple to be mindful when we remember to do so. The deeper practice involves cultivating a natural awareness that exists regardless of our focus on it. As you engage in the simple routines that conclude your day tonight, brushing your teeth, changing clothes, preparing items for tomorrow, can you channel the same level of attention you might provide during formal meditation? Can you uncover whether your spiritual practice has infiltrated the unconscious routines that dominate daily life? Buddha's insights remind us that every moment serves as a teacher, and every location acts as a classroom. The umbrella next to the shoes became Tenno's teacher that day, illustrating precisely where his practice needed to deepen. Sometimes, the most significant lessons appear disguised as the simplest inquiries posed by masters wise enough to perceive that true awakening is found not in transcending the ordinary, but in uncovering the sacred concealed within it. Let us now delve into a narrative about the delicate line between heaven and hell within our hearts. This is the tale of the samurai and the gates in feudal Japan. A battle-hardened warrior named Nuiji sought out the esteemed Zen master Hakuin. The samurai's armor bore the marks of countless confrontations, and his eyes reflected the burden of a man who had witnessed too much bloodshed. He approached the master's humble abode with a question that had been consuming him since his last campaign. "Master Hakuin," Nuiji said, bowing stiffly in his heavy armor, "I have devoted my life to serving my Lord, facing death innumerable times. Please tell me honestly, is there truly a paradise and a hell that await us after death?" Hakuin looked up from his tea, scrutinizing the warrior with penetrating eyes. "Who are you to pose such a question?" he asked calmly. "I am a samurai," Nuiji replied with pride, straightening his back. "I serve my lord with honor and have never shied away from battle." Hakuin's expression suddenly morphed into one of disdain. "You, a soldier?" he exclaimed with a derisive laugh. "What kind of ruler would choose you as his guard? Examine yourself. Your face resembles that of a common beggar, weathered and coarse. How could someone so lowly claim to be a protector of nobility?" The words struck Nuiji like physical blows. His face flushed with anger, and his hand instinctively moved to grasp the hilt of his sword. The insult to his honor was intolerable. "So you possess a sword?" Hakuin continued, his voice laced with mockery. "Your weapon is probably far too dull to sever my head. I doubt you could slice through a rice paper screen, let alone defend anyone of importance." Unable to contain his fury any longer, Nuiji began to draw his sword, the steel singing as it slid from its scabbard. His entire body quaked with rage. His vision narrowed to focus solely on this insolent monk who dared to challenge his honor. At that critical moment, as the blade caught the afternoon light, Hakuin spoke with sudden clarity. "Here, open the gates of hell." The words pierced through Nuiji's rage like an arrow finding its mark. In that instant, he saw himself clearly, engulfed by anger, ready to kill over wounded pride. His mind clouded by fury, he realized hell was not some far-off place, but the very state he occupied in that moment. The samurai's hand froze on his sword as understanding dawned across his features. Slowly, with great reverence, Nuiji sheathed his sword and bowed deeply before the master. His anger transformed into profound gratitude. "Here, "Open the gates of paradise," Hakuin said gently, his voice now imbued with compassion. Buddha's wisdom teaches us that hatred does not cease through hatred, but only through love. This is the eternal truth. What unfolds from this story is a startling insight into the landscape of our inner world. Heaven and hell are not distant destinations, but present experiences we create through the quality of our consciousness. Why do we so readily find ourselves at the gates of hell? Zen Buddhism highlights the three poisons that cloud our minds: greed, hatred, and delusion. When Nuiji's pride was wounded, hatred surged instantly, transforming a peaceful afternoon into a realm of suffering. His entire perception shifted from curiosity about existence after death to a furious rage in a matter of moments. The deeper lesson here reveals that we hold the potential for both states within us. Heaven and hell are not destinations we reach post-mortem. They are experiences we live through in our daily lives. Each instant presents us with the decision between the torment of reactivity and the bliss of awareness. Reflect on how frequently similar shifts happen throughout your day. A critical email lands in your inbox, and instantly your serene morning transforms into a whirlwind of anxiety and resentment. Someone abruptly cuts you off in traffic, and the freedom of your drive constricts into a tight ball of irritation. A careless remark from a coworker, and your satisfaction evaporates, leaving behind hurt feelings and defensive thoughts. In Zen practice, we nurture the ability to recognize these pivotal moments. Like a samurai unsheathing his sword, we learn to catch ourselves right at the instant we are on the verge of entering hell through our reactions. This very acknowledgement becomes the key that unlocks the gates of paradise. Zen master Huang Po imparted wisdom, saying, "The foolish dismiss what they see, not what they think. The wise disregard what they think, not what they see." When we find ourselves in a reactive state, we are rejecting the present moment, the Master's teaching, the chance for awakening, in favor of our assumptions about how things ought to be. The Buddha stated, "Better than 1,000 empty words is a single word that brings tranquility." Hakuin's seemingly offensive remarks were expressions of compassion in disguise. By skillfully inciting Nashiga's anger, he revealed to the warrior precisely what he needed to understand: that hell is a mental state we enter through our own choices. This lesson encourages us to scrutinize our own triggers. What phrases or scenarios instantly catapult us into hell? It may be feeling undervalued at work, being misinterpreted by family, or encountering unforeseen obstacles. Each of these situations presents the same choice that No faced. Will we draw our sword or embrace the lesson tonight? As you feel irritation bubbling up in response to frustration, can you recall Hakuin's message? Can you identify the moment when you're about to slip into hell through your reactions and instead opt for the paradise of awareness? As the Buddha taught, we become what we think. In every moment, we either open the gates of hell through unconscious reactivity or unlock the gates of paradise through mindful presence. Let us now delve into a story about the interplay between external circumstances and internal cultivation. This is the fable of the horse and the mind. In a distant mountainous area where execution sites served as grim reminders of mortality, Zen Master Bankai sought to assess the depth of his spiritual awakening. For several nights, he immersed himself in meditation beneath a wooden crucifix, using the nearness of death to delve deeper into the essence of existence. After concluding this intense retreat, Bankai journeyed to a nearby place where he could rest. He discovered a tranquil spot on an embankment surrounding a horse corral, where he lay down to continue his contemplation beneath the expansive sky. While he rested there, enveloped in profound silence, a jarring sound shattered his tranquility. From within the corral came the violent clamor of a warrior mercilessly beating his horse. The animal's cries mingled with the sharp crack of a whip and the furious shouts of a man losing grasp. Master Bank observed this distressing scene with increasing unease. The warrior was evidently frustrated, taking out his inner turmoil on the innocent creature. Each strike seemed to heighten the horse's agitation rather than induce compliance, creating a vicious cycle of violence and resistance. Unable to remain silent, Bankai called out from his position, "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" The warrior, consumed by rage, ignored the interruption and continued his brutal treatment. The beating escalated, as did Bankai's concern for both the animal and the man degrading himself through such brutality. "Hey," Bank called out once more, his voice resonating with the authority of one who had spent years cultivating inner peace. "What do you think you're doing?" Still, the warrior persisted, lost in frustration and anger. The horse became increasingly frantic, which only seemed to fuel the man's determination to impose compliance through violence. This time, something in the master's tone broke through the warrior's fury. The man ceased his beating, dismounted, and approached the embankment. As he came closer, his demeanor shifted. There was something about this stranger that commanded respect, a quality of presence that spoke of profound inner development. "You were shouting at me," the warrior said, his voice still tinged with anger, but now laced with curiosity. "Do you have something to share with me?" Bank looked at the man with compassion, seeing not an adversary, but someone ensnared in the same cycles of frustration that ensnare us all. His response was simple yet impactful. Instead of beating your horse for being unruly, why not reflect upon yourself and train your own mind? The words lingered in the space between them, like a bridge connecting two vastly different methods of confronting difficulty. The warrior had been attempting to resolve his problem through external force and domination. Bankai pointed to an entirely different avenue. As the Buddha noted, conquer anger with non-anger, conquer badness with goodness, conquer meanness with generosity, conquer dishonesty with truth. This teaching encapsulates the essence of what Bankai offered the frustrated warrior. The understanding that our external challenges are a reflection of our internal state. What emerges from this tale is the profound realization that we cannot effectively force the world to align with our expectations through aggression or control. The warrior's method of beating the horse into submission symbolizes how we often attempt to navigate difficult circumstances in our own lives. We grow frustrated with external conditions and respond with force, criticism, or manipulation, never acknowledging that the real work lies within. Why do we instinctively attribute our frustrations to external circumstances? Buddhist psychology elucidates that the untrained mind strives to preserve its comfort by controlling its surroundings rather than cultivating the adaptability to respond skillfully to whatever arises. This illustrates what Zen refers to as pushing the river, where we exhaust ourselves attempting to force reality to align with our desires. Reflect on how this tendency appears in everyday situations. The computer that crashes in the middle of a crucial project becomes the target of our frustration, while the underlying issue is our fixation on technology functioning flawlessly. The traffic jam that causes delays ignites road rage, when really, the problem lies in our expectation that travel should always be seamless. A family member who ignores our advice becomes the center of our irritation, when the deeper concern is our desire to control others' decisions. In each instance, we resemble a warrior striking a horse, exerting force on external situations while neglecting the internal factors that contribute to our distress. The horse symbolizes the uncontrollable elements of life, others' actions, natural occurrences, technological mishaps, and the unpredictable nature of existence. Zen teacher Pema Chodron expresses, "You are the sky. Everything else is just the weather." This echoes the truth offered to the warrior by Bankai. Instead of attempting to dominate the weather of external situations, we can cultivate a spacious awareness that remains serene regardless of circumstances. True training involves learning to navigate our own minds rather than seeking to impose our will on the world around us. This does not imply becoming passive or accepting harmful situations, but rather tackling challenges from a place of inner strength instead of reactive anger. Buddhist traditions provide specific practices for this internal development. Mindfulness meditation encourages us to recognize our reactive tendencies without being swept away by them. Loving kindness practices foster compassion for ourselves and others when expectations are unmet. Reflecting on impermanence helps us embrace the ever-changing nature of all circumstances. As you encounter the unavoidable frustrations of daily life this evening, can you recall Bankai's lesson? When you feel the urge to strike out at the horse of challenging situations, can you take a moment to consider, what would it mean to train my own mind instead? Buddha's wisdom teaches us that hatred is never quelled by hatred in this world. Only through non-hatred can hatred be calmed. This is an eternal truth. The path to peace does not lie in conquering external situations, but in nurturing the inner qualities that remain steadfast regardless of what life presents. Let us continue our exploration with a tale about maintaining inner equilibrium amidst external challenges. This is the lesson of Master Hakuin and the profound question, is that so? Master Hakuin resided in a small village where he was highly esteemed for his wisdom, kindness, and exemplary character. For many years, he had upheld a reputation as a pure and enlightened teacher, someone who had risen above ordinary human flaws and embodied the highest spiritual ideals. Villagers frequently approached him with their problems, seeking guidance and inspiration from his teachings and his impeccable way of life. In this same village was a beautiful young woman whose family was well regarded and respected. When she became pregnant outside of marriage, her situation sparked a scandal that reverberated throughout the close-knit community. Her parents were furious and demanded answers about who was responsible for bringing such disgrace upon their family. Initially, the young woman refused to disclose the father's identity. She wanted to protect someone she loved, someone whose future and reputation would be ruined if the truth came to light. However, as her parents' anger escalated and the pressure mounted, she made a desperate choice. In a moment of panic and confusion, she pointed to the one individual she believed could endure this crisis better than her actual lover, the esteemed Master Hakuin. When her furious parents confronted the Zen master with their daughter's accusation, they anticipated protests of innocence, explanations, or at least some sign of shock at being wrongfully accused. Instead, Hakuin calmly listened to their angry words and simply responded, "Is that so?" His reply only seemed to fuel their worst fears. Surely, an innocent man would defend himself more vigorously. The scandal spread throughout the village. Those who had once revered Hakuin as a saint now murmured that he was a hypocrite who had lived a lie. His reputation was shattered overnight, and former students turned away from him in disgust and disappointment. When the child was born, the parents brought the baby directly to Hakuin. "This is your responsibility now," they declared bitterly. "Since you are the father, you must care for this child." They thrust the infant into his arms and departed, leaving him to deal with the consequences of a crime he had never committed. Once more, Hakuin simply said, "Is that so?" and accepted the baby without protest or elaboration. For many months, the former master devoted himself to caring for the child with tender attention. He fed the infant, changed diapers, paced the floor during sleepless nights, and provided all the love and care any devoted parent would offer. Neighbors who had once brought him gifts of food and respect now ignored him or spoke of him with disdain. He had lost his position, his reputation, and his livelihood. Yet he continued to care for the child with peaceful dedication. Meanwhile, the young woman wrestled with the burden of her lie. Observing the revered teacher suffer for her deception while lovingly caring for a child that wasn't his became unbearable. The guilt consumed her until she could no longer bear the weight of her actions. Finally, she confessed the truth to her parents. The real father was a young man in the village whom she had tried to protect. Her parents were horrified to learn of the injustice they had inflicted upon an innocent man. They hurried to Hakuin's modest dwelling, deeply apologetic. "Master, we have wronged you terribly," they said, bowing deeply. "Our daughter has admitted that you are not the father. We now understand that you have suffered unjustly because of our mistake. Please forgive us and allow us to take the child back to its true family." Hakuin listened to their apologies with the same equanimity he had maintained throughout their accusations. As he gently placed the baby into their arms, he offered the same response he had given during the entire ordeal. "Is that so?" As Buddha's wisdom reminds us, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. The essence of inner balance. What emerges from this narrative is the immense strength found in sustaining our inner balance, regardless of how others view us or the challenges life throws our way. Why do we let external situations and the opinions of others dictate our inner peace? Zen Buddhism imparts that real freedom is born from cultivating an unshakable core, one that remains steady amid praise or blame, honor or disgrace, fairness or injustice. Hakuin's perspective illustrates a significant spiritual practice. He wasn't exhibiting indifference or passivity. Instead, he expressed a profound detachment from reputation, status, and even justice itself. His unwavering response indicated that his self-worth and purpose were derived from within, not contingent upon outside endorsement. Reflect on how differently many of us would respond to false allegations, public shaming, and total discredit. The instinctual human reaction is to defend, to resist injustice, to insist that others recognize the truth. However, Hakuin's method reveals an alternative, facing all situations with serene acceptance. This doesn't imply that we should forego self-defense or passively endure all wrongs. Hakuin's teachings carry a subtler message. He illustrates that our inner tranquility doesn't need to hinge on whether external circumstances are just or favorable. We can uphold our center, irrespective of how the world treats us. The Buddha expressed, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." Hakuin's equanimity shielded him from the added suffering that could arise from resentment, self-pity, or frantic efforts to reclaim his reputation. While the circumstances were undoubtedly tough, he refrained from complicating matters with emotional resistance. Examine closely your reactions to criticism, misinterpretation, or unjust treatment. How much of your distress stems from the actual incidents, and how much is rooted in your mental and emotional responses to those incidents? Hakuin's example suggests that we possess far more influence over our emotional reactions than over external events. Tonight, as you encounter whatever judgments, misunderstandings, or injustices life presents, can you recall Master Hakuin's serene response? Can you identify the space between what transpires and your reaction? Realizing that your inner serenity doesn't have to be held captive by external situations. Buddha's wisdom teaches us that peace originates from within. Do not look for it outside. Genuine spiritual growth is not determined by how favorably life treats us, but by our ability to gracefully engage with whatever life unveils, maintaining our compassion, dignity, and inner calm regardless of external acknowledgement of our worth or comprehension of our true essence. Now, let's delve into a tale that reveals the paradoxical nature of spiritual insight and the boundaries of conceptual understanding. This is the lesson of 3 strikes and deeper vision. In the mountain monastery where the 6th patriarch Huineng imparted his wisdom, students journeyed from all corners of China to learn from the master, whose enlightenment was said to surpass that of his contemporaries. Among these seekers was a brilliant young monk named Shen Hui, renowned for his keen intellect and probing inquiries. Unlike many students who approached the patriarch with humble requests for foundational teachings, Shen Hui frequently challenged the master with intricate philosophical questions. One afternoon, as golden sunlight poured through the monastery windows and the tranquil sounds of monks engaged in their daily routines filled the air, Shen Hui located the 6th patriarch seated quietly in the main hall. The master's stance was perfectly still, his breathing soft and natural, his demeanor calm yet vigilant, the embodiment of meditation in motion. Seizing the moment to test his understanding against the master's realization, Shen Hui approached with a question that had been forming during his meditation sessions. The essence of perception in spiritual practice had evolved into a significant source of curiosity and confusion for him. "Greetings, Master," Shen Hui said, bowing respectfully, yet speaking with the confidence of one who believed his question to be particularly astute. "When you enter meditation, do you see or not?" To Shen Hui, this appeared to be a perfectly valid inquiry into the mechanics of enlightened awareness. Did awakened consciousness involve distinct ways of seeing? Did meditation unveil mystical sights or elevated perceptions inaccessible to ordinary minds? Or did genuine realization transcend vision altogether, existing in a pure state beyond sensory experiences? What he received in response was entirely unforeseen. Without warning, the sixth patriarch picked up his wooden teaching stick and struck Shen Hui 3 times in swift succession, not gently, but with enough force that the blow stung sharply, leaving the young monk both physically discomforted and mentally perplexed. "When I strike you," the patriarch asked, maintaining the same calm tone one might use to discuss the weather, "does it hurt or not?" Shen Hui rubbed his aching shoulders, his mind racing to comprehend the incident. The question seemed straightforward, yet something about the context led him to suspect that a simple answer might be insufficient. The physical sensation was undeniable, yet the spiritual implications felt intricate. "It both does and does not hurt," he replied cautiously, sensing that the master was hinting at a paradox beyond ordinary reasoning. "I both see and do not see," the sixth patriarch responded, his words carrying the weight of lived experience rather than philosophical conjecture. However, Shen Hui's intellect remained dissatisfied with the paradox. He needed to grasp the mechanics to categorize and articulate this teaching in terms his conceptual mind could understand. "How can you both see and not see?" he pressed, genuine confusion evident in his tone. "That seems contradictory. Either you see during meditation, or you do not. How can both be true at once?" The patriarch's reply came with the patience of someone who had devoted years to guiding students beyond the confines of dualistic thinking. "What I see," he explained with gentle clarity, "are the fluctuations and distractions of my own mind. What I do not see are the rights and wrongs, the good and bad of others. This is my seeing and not seeing." The heart of true freedom. In these profound words, the essence of the teaching came to light. The master was not referring to elusive visions or elevated states of consciousness, but rather to the essential transformation in perspective that accompanies true spiritual growth. Ancient Buddhist wisdom states, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." This principle resonates deeply with the patriarch's lesson on the essence of awakened perception. Why do we find ourselves perplexed when spiritual truths defy conventional logic? Zen Buddhism explains that our conceptual mind categorizes experiences into dualistic notions: seeing or not seeing, pain or ease, right or wrong. However, enlightened awareness does not erase these experiences but alters our relationship with them. The deeper lesson reveals what genuine spiritual perception entails. The patriarch observes his own mental activities with clarity, witnessing the emergence and dissolution of thoughts, feelings, and reactions. This is not a mystical ability, but rather the natural outcome of dedicated mindfulness practice. He perceives the fluctuations and distractions of consciousness without becoming ensnared by them. At the same time, he refrains from judging others, imposing rigid categories of right and wrong, good and bad upon their actions. This non-judgment is not ignorance but wisdom, recognizing that such evaluations often reflect more about the observer than the observed. Examine your own patterns of perception. How much of what you believe you perceive in others is simply a projection of your own mental state? When someone frustrates you, are you truly seeing their behavior, or are you merely reacting to your own triggers? When someone impresses you, are you perceiving their authentic qualities, Or are you reflecting your own desires for validation or success? This ancient insight clarifies the distinction between reactive perception and clear seeing. Reactive perception is shaped by our past conditioning, emotional needs, and habitual judgments. Clear seeing embodies awareness that recognizes its own processes while remaining receptive to what is genuinely present. Zen Master Dogen taught that to study the Buddha way is to study oneself. To study oneself is to forget oneself. This teaching aligns with the insight offered by the Patriarch. True perception involves directing attention inward toward our own mental activities rather than fixating on external judgments and assessments. The 3 strikes Shenhui received were not punitive measures, but rather skillful teachings. Physical discomfort that both hurts and does not hurt points to the enigma of conscious experience itself. Pain arises within awareness, is fully felt, yet does not define or constrain the awareness experiencing it. Similarly, thoughts and feelings arise in consciousness without tainting its fundamental clarity. Reflect on how this teaching could revolutionize your daily experience. Instead of perpetually assessing others' actions, finding fault, making comparisons, and forming opinions, what if you redirected that same focus to observing your own mental responses? What patterns might you uncover in the fluctuations and distractions of your own mind? This does not imply that we become passive or lose our ability to discern. Rather, we cultivate the capacity to respond from clarity instead of reactivity. When we see our own judgmental inclinations clearly, we naturally become less ensnared by them. By observing our mental projections, we are less likely to confuse them with objective reality. In Zen practice, we nurture what is termed mirror mind, awareness that reflects whatever arises without being tainted or altered by it. This mirror perceives everything with clarity while upholding its intrinsic emptiness and openness. As you notice your mind categorizing and judging the events of your day tonight, can you recall the Patriarch's teaching? Can you shift your focus toward the observer rather than perpetually assessing what is observed? Can you uncover the liberation that comes from recognizing your own mental processes without being shackled by them? Buddha articulated this when he stated, "You yourself, as much as anyone else in the entire universe, deserve your love and kindness." By learning to recognize our own mental patterns with compassion rather than judgment, we cultivate the clarity to perceive others with equal kindness and understanding. Let us continue our journey with a narrative about uncovering the essence of genuine freedom. This is the story of a student and the heart of the master. In a serene monastery garden where cherry blossoms floated like snowflakes, a young student approached his teacher during evening meditation. The master sat beneath an ancient maple tree, twilight casting soft purples and golds across the sky. This student had dedicated years to earnest practice. Yet recently, deeper questions had emerged that transcended formal teachings. Taking a seat next to his teacher, the student summoned the courage to express his concerns. "Master," he began softly, "in my youth, I longed for my family and loved ones to take pride in me. I wanted to excel academically, to achieve things that would bring them joy. Did you ever feel the same?" The master turned his gentle gaze towards the student, recognizing in the young man's eyes the same sincere yearning that had once propelled his own quest. After a moment of contemplative silence, he replied simply, Yes, I was very much the same. The student felt a sense of relief wash over him at this acknowledgement. Why did you crave their pride so intensely? He inquired. What fueled that need for validation? The master smiled with affectionate recognition. I wanted them to feel they had ample reason to love and accept me, he reflected. If I could make them proud, their love would surely be secure and abundant. However, the root of this desire went even deeper. The student leaned in, sensing they were nearing something fundamental. I sought their love so desperately, the master continued, because I believed that I would then have sufficient reason to love and accept myself. I was seeking permission from others to feel good about who I was. Their approval would serve as proof of my worthiness, even to myself. That was the underlying cause of all my striving. The master paused, observing the first stars twinkling into existence. But one day, I awakened to a transformative possibility. I realized I could pose a different question to myself. What if I could bypass all external validation and instead learn to love and accept myself unconditionally? What if I could find genuine contentment within myself without needing anyone else's approval? As these thoughts settled in, the student felt a shift in his chest. I envisioned a reality where my happiness wasn't contingent on external factors, where the opinions of others didn't dictate my sense of worth. What if my value could be as unwavering as my heartbeat, free from the need for outside affirmation? The student sensed his teacher's words guiding him toward a freedom he had never previously imagined. This realization marked the beginning of his journey toward self-discovery. Precisely, the master acknowledged. That was the moment my authentic spiritual path began, not through seeking validation outside of myself, but through uncovering the completeness that resided within. After a moment of contemplative silence, the student inquired, "Did you ever again yearn for their approval? Did that desire fade away completely?" The master let out a soft chuckle. "Oh, my ego surely still craved validation. Learned behaviors don't vanish instantly, yet something fundamental shifted in my connection to those cravings. I no longer wholly identified with my ego as I once did." He gestured toward the garden, now dimmed as fireflies began to twinkle in the twilight. I learned to perceive those thoughts of seeking approval as fleeting occurrences, much like these fireflies that appear and vanish. I could observe them with curiosity and compassion, yet I no longer permitted them to dictate my self-worth. "So, you still cared about others' opinions?" the student pressed. "I valued their viewpoints and respected their insights," the master replied. "However, I ceased to attribute so much significance to them. Their approval became akin to the weather, sometimes enjoyable, sometimes not, but no longer the deciding factor in my sense of inner peace." The master's expression radiated a serene joy. I had never felt such liberation as when I let go in this manner. It was as if I had been shackled by invisible chains for years, and suddenly they fell away. The love I had sought externally was revealed to be within me all along. Buddha's teachings remind us that if you truly love yourself, you would never inflict harm upon yourself through detrimental thoughts, actions, or decisions. This lesson is at the core of the master's realization. Much of our suffering arises from the erroneous belief that we must earn the right to love ourselves through external accomplishments or validation. Herein lies one of the most groundbreaking insights available. Self-love is not a prize to be earned, but our inherent birthright to be embraced. We are born whole and deserving, not due to our achievements, but simply because we exist. Why is unconditional self-love so elusive? From our earliest days, we internalize messages suggesting that love must be merited through good behavior, success, or pleasing others. We learn to treat ourselves in the same manner we were treated, often with criticism and conditions. These habits become so ingrained that embracing unconditional self-acceptance feels alien. Our society amplifies this conditioning by perpetuating the false notion that happiness is derived from external sources. Each message reinforces the illusion that we are incomplete as we are. Reflect on how much mental energy is expended in managing others' perceptions. How often do you alter your genuine expression in pursuit of approval? How much of your self-worth hinges on external validation rather than recognizing your intrinsic value? When we embrace unconditional self-love, we create a foundation of fulfillment that allows us to appreciate the affection of others without reliance on it. We can accept compliments with gratitude rather than desperate need and face criticism without being shattered because our essential worth remains intact. The Buddha stated, "You can search throughout the entire universe for someone more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself, and that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself deserve your love and affection." This is not narcissism. It's an acknowledgement of a fundamental truth about consciousness itself. Tonight, as you bask in this moment's tranquility, can you perceive the presence reading these words? This awareness, which knows your thoughts and observes your experiences, is neither enhanced nor diminished by anything that occurs. It remains constant and clear, much like space itself. What might it be like to treat this aware presence with the tenderness it deserves? Perhaps you could extend the same patience to yourself that you would offer a cherished child learning something new, or the same compassion you would show a friend facing challenges. As the Buddha taught, hatred cannot be quelled by hatred. Only through non-hatred can hatred be appeased. Self-criticism cannot be healed by more self-criticism. Only by learning to love ourselves as we are can we create the inner conditions for genuine transformation. In discovering this unconditional love within ourselves, we find the freedom we sought through others' approval was always present, beating steadily in our hearts. Let us continue our exploration with a story that exemplifies the transformative power of fearlessness and unconditional compassion. This is the narrative of the thief and the Zen master. One tranquil evening, as dusk painted the sky in hues of purple and gold, Zen master Shichiri Kojin sat in his modest abode, reciting ancient sutras. His voice flowed rhythmically through the serene rooms, each word a meditation, each breath a prayer. The soft flicker of candlelight danced across the walls as he immersed himself fully in the sacred texts, finding profound peace in the familiar verses. Suddenly, the tranquility was shattered. The front door burst open with a jarring crash, and a frantic man entered, wielding a sharp sword that glimmered ominously in the candle's glow. His eyes were wide with desperation, his clothes soiled and torn, his breath heavy from running. He had clearly chosen this secluded dwelling, believing it would be an easy target. A tranquil monk would offer no resistance. "Money or your life?" the thief demanded, his voice quivering with a mix of fear and aggression. He anticipated the old man would cower, plead, or scramble frantically for whatever valuables he may have concealed. However, Shichiri didn't even lift his gaze from his sutra. His voice remained calm and steady, continuing his recitation for a moment before pausing to address the intruder. "Please do not disrupt my practice," he said with the same gentle tone one might use to request someone to close a door. "If you need money, feel free to take it. It's located in that drawer over there." He casually pointed to a plain wooden chest, then seamlessly returned to his reading as if the moment was completely ordinary. The thief stood motionless, sword still raised, utterly perplexed. Throughout his entire career of theft, he had never witnessed such a reaction. There was no fear, no begging, no anger, only a calm willingness to assist, as if he were a neighbor asking to borrow a tool. Confused but undeterred, the thief approached the designated drawer and began to collect the coins and small treasures he discovered inside. The soft murmur of the master's voice persisted behind him, reciting sacred phrases as serenely as though he were alone. Just as the thief was about to exit with his loot, the master's voice interrupted him once more. "Hold on," Shichiri said, finally looking up from his book. "Please don't take it all. I need some of that money to settle my taxes tomorrow. Could you leave a bit for me, please?" The thief stared at him in disbelief. Here was a man being robbed, calmly negotiating the terms of his own robbery, as if they were engaged in a typical transaction. Almost instinctively, the thief returned some of the money to the drawer. As he turned to depart, convinced that this bizarre encounter had concluded, the master's voice called out again. "You took my money," Shichiri remarked, his tone tinged with reproach, "and you didn't even express gratitude. That's rather impolite, wouldn't you say?" This final remark rendered the thief utterly speechless. His hand holding the sword began to tremble. Never had he felt so unsettled in all his violent encounters. Here was a man who regarded robbery as a favor and prioritized courtesy over his own safety. "Thank you," the thief stammered before fleeing into the night as fast as his legs could carry him. Later, when the thief was apprehended and confessed to various crimes, including the incident at Shichiri's home, the master was summoned as a witness. Court officials anticipated him to demand justice and recount the fear and violation he had suffered. Instead, Shichiri spoke with the same serene clarity he had exhibited that evening. "This man did not steal anything from me," he testified. "I willingly gave him the money. He even expressed thanks, although it required a little prompting." The thief, now in chains, felt something shatter within him as he absorbed these words. This man had not only shown him remarkable kindness during the crime, but was now shielding him from its repercussions. For the first time in years, tears welled up in his eyes. Not tears of self-pity or rage, but tears of realization. He had encountered something he had never known before: unconditional love. After being released from prison, the reformed thief sought out the master and pleaded to become his disciple. Under Shichiri's nurturing guidance, he learned to nurture the same fearless compassion he had witnessed that night. Years later, through diligent practice and the master's steadfast belief in his ability to transform, he achieved profound peace and wisdom, attaining enlightenment. As the Buddha noted, hatred ceases only through love, never through hatred. This is the timeless truth. From this story emerges the transformative power of confronting violence with unwavering peace, responding to taking with giving, and countering fear with love. Why do we instinctively feel that force must be met with force, that aggression demands a defensive response? Zen Buddhism reveals that this pattern, though instinctive, often perpetuates the very conflicts it aims to resolve. When we react to hostility with hostility, we merely escalate the cycle of suffering. But when we engage with genuine compassion, not passive acceptance, but active love, we create an opportunity for transformation that would otherwise not exist. Reflect deeply on your own experiences. When someone approaches you with anger, criticism, or demands, what is your immediate response? Most of us instinctively prepare our defenses, gearing up to protect ourselves through counterattacks or withdrawal. But pay attention to what occurs in your body and mind during these defensive reactions. Does the tension dissipate or intensify? Does the conflict resolve or escalate? Shichiri's response illustrates what Zen refers to as skillful means, acting from wisdom rather than instinct. His courage did not stem from ignorance of danger, but from a profound understanding of reality. He recognized that the thief's aggression was born from desperation and suffering, not from inherent malevolence. By refusing to view him as an adversary, Shichiri opened the door for the thief to view himself differently. In Zen practice, we cultivate what could be termed the courage of defenselessness. This does not imply naivety regarding real danger or allowing ourselves to be harmed unnecessarily. Instead, it signifies developing the confidence to respond to challenging situations from our highest wisdom rather than our most primitive instincts. The Buddha taught, ultimately, just three things matter: how well we have lived, how well we have loved, and how well we have learned to let go. Shichiri embodied all three principles in his encounter with the thief. He lived with complete presence, loved unconditionally, and released any attachment to his belongings or even his personal safety. Reflect on the individuals in your life who challenge you: the difficult colleague, the critical family member, the aggressive driver in traffic. What would it mean to respond to their energy with the same kind of fearless compassion that Shichiri illustrated? Not by acquiescing to them or complying with their demands, but by refusing to mirror their level of reactivity. By remaining connected to your own center of peace, irrespective of their conduct. Tonight, as you face your own moments of stress or conflict, can you remember the master who treated a robber as an esteemed guest? Can you locate the space between stimulus and response where choice resides? Where you can choose to confront aggression with peace, taking with giving, and fear with love. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us that better than 1,000 empty words is a single word that brings peace. Sometimes, the most potent response to violence is simply to remain steadfast in our commitment to compassion, aware that love possesses a transformative power that force can never replicate. A Zen tale of direct spiritual transmission. Let us delve into a Zen parable that highlights the irreplaceable essence of direct spiritual connection. This is the story of Bank and the Envoy. In the vibrant capital city, where traders negotiated amidst bustling markets and intellectuals engaged in discussions at tea houses, The esteemed Zen Master Bank had just finished another teaching session at one of the great temples. Widely recognized for his deep understanding and capacity to guide students toward their innate Buddha nature, Bank traveled from temple to temple, offering his wisdom wherever earnest seekers gathered. As he prepared to leave for his next location, carefully packing his meager belongings into a travel sack, a finely dressed man approached him with a sense of urgency and respect. The gentleman's luxurious silk garments and meticulous demeanor suggested he was accustomed to elite circles, likely serving as an attendant or aide to one of the noble families that supported the temple. "Venerable Master," the man said, bowing deeply, "I come with a request from the Baron, a learned man with a genuine interest in your teachings. He has heard of your wisdom and is eager to meet with you, but pressing matters have detained him today. Would you consider delaying your departure for one day so that he might have the privilege of learning from you tomorrow?" Bank, though eager to reach the next temple where students awaited him, sensed the sincerity in the request. A teacher's path calls for adaptability and compassion, even at inconvenient times. "Certainly," he replied simply, "I will stay one more day." The master unpacked his belongings and settled back into the temple quarters, spending the evening in silent meditation, preparing for what he hoped would be a significant encounter with a dedicated seeker. Over the years, he had met many nobles who approached Zen with true humility despite their worldly status, and he looked forward to providing any guidance that might prove beneficial. The following morning dawned with clear skies and the sound of temple bells summoning the community to meditation. As the appointed time drew near, Banker waited in his designated meeting room, but instead of the Baron himself, the same elegantly dressed gentleman returned, this time with a look of clear embarrassment on his face. "Master," the man began, his voice laden with regret, "I bring unfortunate news. The Baron has been called away on urgent business that cannot be postponed, issues of state that require his immediate attention. However, he remains committed to his desire for your teaching. He has asked me to act as his representative, to receive your instruction on his behalf and faithfully convey your wisdom back to him." The gentleman paused, clearly hoping this arrangement would be acceptable. The Baron's specific inquiry concerns the nature of the mind itself. He wishes to grasp the true essence of consciousness and how one can realize it directly. If you could share your teachings on this subject, I promise to relay every word exactly as you convey it. Bank listened to this request with gentle attention, his demeanor calm and compassionate. After the gentleman finished speaking, the master sat quietly for a moment, contemplating not only the question but the entire scenario, the absent seeker, the well-meaning messenger, and the profound challenge of what was being requested. Finally, Bank spoke with his characteristic simplicity and straightforwardness. This matter of Zen is challenging to express even through direct dialogue between teacher and student when they are face to face. It becomes all the more difficult, indeed impossible, to convey through a messenger, no matter how sincere or competent that messenger may be. After delivering this response, the master fell silent, embodying the very teaching he had just communicated. The gentleman waited, perhaps anticipating further explanation or alternative suggestions, but none were forthcoming. Eventually, feeling at a loss and somewhat perplexed, the gentleman bowed respectfully and exited the temple. The Buddha once remarked, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This profound truth manifests in Bank's gentle but resolute refusal to simplify Zen wisdom into a message that could be transmitted by proxy. Spiritual awakening cannot be shared secondhand because it is not mere information but a transformation. Why do we often treat spiritual learning as if it were academic knowledge that can be gathered and communicated through intermediaries? Zen Buddhism teaches that awakening is not a concept to be understood, but a reality to be encountered directly. Like the experience of water for someone in need, it cannot be adequately articulated. It must be experienced firsthand. The Baron's inquiry regarding the nature of consciousness reveals our common approach to spiritual exploration. We tend to seek to understand awareness in intellectual terms, to grasp it conceptually, to hold it as knowledge. However, consciousness cannot be treated as an object of study since it is the very subject engaged in the study. It's akin to trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. The act of seeing is what you are attempting to see. Reflect on how often throughout your day you might treat spiritual wisdom as mere information to be collected rather than truth to be embodied. We read books about meditation instead of meditating. We analyze descriptions of enlightenment instead of investigating our present experience. We seek answers regarding the nature of the mind instead of directly examining what we call mind in this very moment. Zen Master Dogen taught that to study the Buddha's way is to study the self, and to study the self is to forget the self. This paradox highlights the essence of why spiritual transmission necessitates direct engagement. The self that yearns to understand Buddhism intellectually is the very construct that must be seen through. This clarity arises not from accumulating knowledge but through an intimate exploration of immediate experience. The messenger in this tale symbolizes our tendency to pursue awakening indirectly. We wish to comprehend consciousness from a safe distance, maintaining the illusion that we are separate observers studying an entity called awareness. Yet, awareness is what we are, not something we possess. It cannot be owned, comprehended, or conveyed because we are manifestations of it. The silence of wisdom. In the wake of his succinct explanation, the silence that enveloped Bank served as a lesson in itself. In Zen philosophy, silence often conveys more than words ever could. The intervals between thoughts, the moments between breaths, the awareness from which all experiences emerge, these cannot be encapsulated in language but can be directly experienced when we cease to conceptualize them. This does not imply that spiritual teaching is futile or that teachers lack significance. Instead, it suggests that genuine teaching guides students toward their own immediate experiences rather than offering second-hand accounts of someone else's enlightenment. The function of the teacher is not to impart enlightenment, but to establish circumstances in which students can recognize what they inherently are. As you sit here tonight, aware of being conscious, aware of these words, aware of your body, and aware of the space where thoughts and sensations arise, can you examine this awareness directly instead of through conceptual frameworks? Can you engage with your experience rather than attempting to comprehend it through the narratives of others? As the Buddha advised, strive for your own salvation with diligence. The journey to liberation cannot be undertaken by proxy. It necessitates your own footsteps, your own breath, and your own readiness to directly confront what you have always been, yet perhaps never fully acknowledged. Now, let us delve into the story of a young monk who believed he had faltered on his spiritual journey. This is the tale of the Golden Wake. At a tranquil monastery perched beside a calm mountain lake, a young disciple sat disheartened on the temple steps as the sun began its descent toward the water. His shoulders drooped under the burden of disappointment, and his eyes mirrored the heaviness in his heart. For months, he had wrestled with his studies, struggling to grasp the profound teachings that seemed to flow effortlessly for his fellow monks. "The boat is coming to take me home because I have failed in my studies here at the monastery," he confided to his teacher, who had quietly approached and settled beside him. "What can I tell my family? They sent me here full of hope, believing I would return as a knowledgeable monk capable of guiding others on their journey." The old teacher gazed out at the lake, where a small wooden boat glided slowly across the still surface. The setting sun bathed everything in hues of gold and amber. "Tell them you did your best, and that is all anyone can ask," he replied gently, his voice imbued with the wisdom of many years. "But I aspired to be a renowned monk and teach others," the boy lamented, his voice thick with sorrow. "I envisioned leading meditation sessions, having students seek my guidance, making a real difference in the world." "You can," the teacher replied simply. "How?" questioned the sorrowful boy, his gaze fixed on his teacher in confusion. "I couldn't even memorize the fundamental sutras. I dozed off during meditation. I've failed at everything that truly matters." The teacher smiled and gestured toward the water. "Live from your heart. I will show you. Do you see that boat making its way across the lake with the sun setting behind it?" "Yes," the boy answered, following his teacher's gaze. "Do you observe its wake spreading across the lake? Notice how the boat appears as the peak of a golden triangle while the wake fans out from its bow." The boy squinted, attempting to discern what his teacher described. "Squint a bit more," suggested the teacher patiently. "That boat represents you. As you leave the monastery, the lake symbolizes your life. The wake signifies the impact you will have on the world. Each ripple sets off another ripple, which sets off another. By continually striving to live a wise and loving life, you can convey the path of love to everyone you encounter simply by being your authentic self. A few of these individuals will carry forward your positive example to others. In this way, the expanding golden wake of good deeds begets further good deeds. Most importantly, observe how each ripple catches the sun and reflects its light back to the heavens." The boy gazed in, or as the simple boat continued its journey, the wake indeed forming an ever-expanding triangle of light upon the water. Each small wave captured the golden sunlight, reflecting it back toward the sky in countless twinkling points. "Would you come home with me and explain all of this to my father?" asked the boy, hope beginning to flicker in his voice. The wisdom of Buddha reminds us, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. The deeper message here illustrates that influence spreads not through grand acts or perfect knowledge, but through the genuine authenticity of a heart dedicated to goodness. Why do we think that only formal credentials or acknowledged achievements qualify us to make a meaningful difference? Zen Buddhism highlights our attachment to external validation and our misunderstanding of how wisdom truly passes from one person to another. We tend to believe that teaching necessitates a podium, a title, or a certificate. In reality, the most profound lessons are shared through the quality of our presence and the integrity of our actions. Consider how often throughout your day you encounter individuals who touch your life not through their expertise but through their kindness, their patience, or their simple warmth. The grocery store clerk who greets you with genuine care, the stranger who offers directions with a smile, the friend who listens without judgment. These individuals create ripples that extend far beyond their awareness. In Zen practice, we nurture what might be termed unconscious teaching. This is the natural transmission that occurs when our actions align with our deepest values. Like the boat on the lake, we may not perceive our wake, but it inevitably spreads behind us, touching shores we never knew existed. The Buddha stated, "Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened." Happiness never decreases by being shared. Each moment of authentic living becomes a lesson. Each act of compassion generates ripples. Each choice to respond with wisdom instead of reactivity sends light back toward the heavens. As you contemplate your own journey tonight, can you recognize the golden wake you are already creating? Perhaps it resides in the patience you extend to a challenging family member, the encouragement you provide to a struggling colleague, or the simple presence you offer in everyday encounters. The light you reflect may illuminate paths you've never envisioned. Unveiling the illusions, the tale of the abbot and his robe. In a lively merchant district of an ancient Chinese city, where silk merchants thrived and affluent families constructed grand homes behind towering walls, resided a man whose wealth was the talk of the town. His residence featured intricately carved jade doorways, sprawling courtyards filled with rare birds, and a multitude of servants catering to his every whim. This individual took immense pride in his status and was meticulous about preserving his reputation among the elite of society. One crisp morning, as the autumn rain drizzled steadily over the cobblestone streets, a figure approached his lavish entrance. The visitor was a Zen abbot from a mountain monastery, yet he appeared as nothing but a beggar. His simple, brown robes were tattered and threadbare from years of wear. His sandals were scuffed and caked with mud from traversing rugged mountain trails, and his wooden begging bowl bore the marks of countless meals received through charity. The abbot stood silently at the entrance, rain trickling down his bald head, exuding the patient dignity forged through years of spiritual discipline. Upon noticing him, the gatekeeper's face contorted with disdain. "What do you seek, beggar?" he barked, showing no hint of respect. "This residence belongs to an important man. We have no scraps for drifters." "I am on a journey and seeking alms," the abbot replied softly. "Perhaps your master would be willing to share a simple meal with a monk." The gatekeeper eyed him with evident contempt. This disheveled figure, this shabby appearance, clearly, he was just another vagrant attempting to exploit the generosity of his master. "Begone," he ordered. "My master does not squander food on beggars. Seek your charity elsewhere." The abbot accepted this dismissal without displaying anger or argument. He merely bowed, turned, and retraced his steps into the rain, his empty bowl cradled under his arm. Hours later, as the sun broke through the clouds, the same figure returned to the same gate. This time, however, everything had transformed. The abbot was now adorned in his formal ceremonial robes, resplendent golden silk intricately embroidered, with a magnificent purple sash draped over his shoulders, and prayer beads carved from precious wood hanging from his hands. His demeanor remained humble, yet his appearance unmistakably heralded a high spiritual status and monastic wealth. Upon seeing him approach, the gatekeeper's entire attitude shifted dramatically. "Welcome, esteemed master," he exclaimed, bowing deeply. "Please, come in. My master will be thrilled to host such a distinguished guest." The wealthy man himself hurried out to greet the abbot personally, showering him with elaborate bows and flowery words of welcome. "Venerable sir, what a privilege it is for our modest household. You must honor us with your presence for our finest meal. Please, allow us to serve you." They escorted the abbot into their most luxurious dining hall, where servants promptly prepared an extravagant feast. Exquisite fish, perfectly seasoned vegetables, aromatic rice, and delightful desserts adorned the low table. The affluent man sat across from the abbot, beaming with pride at his capacity to entertain such a revered religious figure. As the first dish was presented, the abbot did something entirely unexpected. Instead of indulging in the meal, he carefully removed his splendid ceremonial robe and folded it with meticulous care. Then, with deliberate intention, he laid the folded robe directly in front of the feast as if it were the honored guest. Rising with quiet dignity, the abbot spoke clearly so all could hear. "This meal is not for me. It is for the robe." Without uttering another word, he exited the house, leaving behind the lavish feast and the affluent man's stunned realization of his own superficial judgments. Buddha's wisdom teaches us, do not judge by appearances. A rich heart may be cloaked in a tattered garment. Here, we uncover how our fixation on external appearances creates barriers to authentic human connection and spiritual insight. Why do we so readily judge others based on their attire, status symbols, or outward demeanor? Zen Buddhism highlights our conditioned mind's tendency to create categories and hierarchies based on surface appearances. This mental shortcut allows us to think we understand individuals without engaging in the more challenging task of seeing their true essence. The affluent man's household epitomizes a pattern we all recognize within ourselves. How differently do we treat a well-dressed stranger compared to one in ragged clothing? How does our attention shift when someone mentions their impressive job title versus a more humble occupation? How does our respect fluctuate upon learning about someone's wealth or poverty? This ancient wisdom sheds light on our inclination to project worth onto external symbols rather than acknowledging the inherent dignity of every individual. The abbot remained fundamentally the same person in both encounters. His wisdom, compassion, and spiritual insight were unaltered by his clothing. Yet, the household's treatment of him changed entirely based solely on appearances. Reflect deeply on your own patterns of judgment. Perhaps you find yourself making assumptions about individuals in luxury cars versus those in older models, designer attire versus thrift store finds, prestigious neighborhoods versus modest ones. Each of these judgments reveals how we have been conditioned to equate external appearance with internal value. This story leads us to a profound question about authenticity. If we receive varying treatment based on our presentation, which version of ourselves is the true one? Are we the person in casual wear running errands, or the one dressed professionally for important meetings? Are we the one seeking assistance or the one providing it? In Zen practice, We cultivate what is known as the original face, the authentic self that exists beneath all roles, costumes, and facades. This original face remains unchanged, whether we are clad in rags or ceremonial robes. Whether others treat us with regard or scorn, as Zen masters teach, your original face is not born and does not die. This teaching urges us to recognize that our essential nature, our capacity for awareness, love, and wisdom remains constant, regardless of how others view us or how we present ourselves to the world. The lesson imparted by the abbot extended beyond just the affluent. It was meant for everyone who might encounter his narrative. By nurturing the robe rather than himself, he illuminated how frequently we connect with individuals' outward appearances instead of their true essence. We revere titles, attire, and symbols of prestige, often overlooking the genuine person standing before us. Reflect on how this understanding could reshape your everyday engagements. The waiter at your favorite diner, the cashier at the market, the passerby seeking directions, all possess the same inherent dignity as the most esteemed guest. The challenge lies in seeing beyond uniforms, situations, and societal roles to the authentic self beneath. This doesn't imply we disregard practical realities or social norms, but rather that we approach them with a lighter touch. We can acknowledge someone's professional identity while still recognizing their essential humanity. We can dress suitably for occasions while understanding that our worth isn't contingent upon our clothing. As you reflect on the diverse roles and facades you assume throughout your day, can you perceive the unchanging awareness that observes all these transient disguises? Can you sense the original self that remains unchanged whether others view you as significant or overlooked? The Buddha stated, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." The abbot's silent act conveyed more meaning than lengthy discourses on equality and empathy. By stepping away from the feast prepared for his presence rather than his true self, he imparted a lesson that continues to resonate through the ages. Now, let us delve into a story about the bravery to trust in the flow of life. This is the tale of the Crystal River. In the depths of a magnificent crystal river, where the water flowed clear as mountain air, there thrived a village of tiny beings. The river's current moved above them like a gentle breath, carrying the wisdom of countless springs and distant oceans. Young and old, affluent and impoverished, all made their homes along the sandy bed. Each creature held tightly to stones, branches, and roots. For generations, this clinging had been their mode of survival. Every creature learned from birth to wrap their limbs around river rocks and fallen timber. "Hold on," the elders advised. "The current is perilous. It will carry you to unknown places. Security lies in remaining right where you are." However, one small creature grew tired of this relentless grasping. Day after day, he observed the current flowing above, marveling at its purposeful grace. While his neighbors lamented the exertion needed to maintain their grip, he pondered what it might feel like to trust that flowing water. "I am weary of clinging," he declared one morning. "Although I cannot see its end, I trust that the current knows its destination. I will let go and allow it to take me wherever it leads, for I fear that if I keep clinging, I will die of boredom before I truly live." The other creatures gasped in disbelief. "Foolish one," they cried. "Let go. and that current will toss you mercilessly over the rocks below. You will be battered and broken, dying far sooner than any boredom could claim you. Yet the small creature had made his choice. Taking one last glance at his companions, he released his hold on the familiar stone. Instantly, the current seized him, and just as the others had warned, he was tumbled and tossed across the rocky bed. His little body collided with stone after stone. Each jolt brought a pain he had never known while safely clinging. Yet something extraordinary began to unfold. As the creature continued to yield to the current strength, refusing to reach for new anchors despite his suffering, the water gradually lifted him higher from the treacherous bottom. The tumbling ceased. The rocks could no longer strike him. Now he flowed with the current itself, no longer resisting its direction, but becoming one with its motion. As he drifted downstream, creatures in faraway parts witnessed something they had never seen before. Here was one of their own kind, yet he seemed to be soaring through the water, moving with the graceful power of the current itself. "Look at this miracle," they exclaimed. "A creature like ourselves, yet he flies. Surely he is the Savior, come to deliver us all." The flowing creature heard their exclamations and felt compassion for their misunderstanding. "I am no more Savior than any of you," he called back. "The river delights in lifting us all, if only we dare to let go. Our true task is not to cling to the bottom, but to embrace this journey, this grand adventure of trust and flow." But the creatures only cried louder, "Savior, Savior." Even as they spoke, they tightened their grips on the stones and roots. They watched until he vanished around a bend, then began spinning tales about the miraculous Savior who had briefly blessed their village. Buddha's wisdom reminds us, you only lose what you cling to. This ancient teaching sheds light on the profound paradox at the heart of human existence. We spend our lives clinging to security and control, convinced that our safety relies on holding tight to familiar circumstances. Yet in this very clinging, we create the suffering we seek to evade. Why do we cling so desperately when the current invites us to embark on unknown adventures? Zen Buddhism reveals that from a young age, we learn that the known is safe and the unknown is perilous. This conditioning transforms into a spiritual barrier when it obstructs growth beyond familiar confines. We also suffer from the illusion of control, believing that by grasping at circumstances, relationships, and identities, we can halt the natural flow of change. This engenders significant tension as it positions us in opposition to reality itself. Life is in constant motion, and when we resist this truth, we tire ourselves fighting against currents far more powerful than our individual will. Reflect on the areas of your life where you find yourself clinging. Perhaps it's a relationship that has outlived its original form, a career that no longer brings fulfillment, or a self-image that now restricts your growth. The current of change will persist whether we resist it or not. Our choice lies in whether to exhaust ourselves in futile resistance or discover the grace available in conscious surrender. The Buddha remarked, "Nothing is permanent except change." Water does not struggle against the mountainside. It finds the natural pathway down. Embracing the flow of life. When we learn to align ourselves with life's current rather than resist it, we uncover a level of effectiveness that rigid opposition can never attain. As you find stillness in this moment tonight, what burdens might you be ready to let go? It could be a concern about the challenges awaiting you, a grievance from past disappointments, or an outdated self-image that no longer serves you. Can you tune into the vibrant energy of this moment and trust its guidance? As the Buddha advised, release what has already occurred. Let go of what lies ahead. Let go of what is unfolding right now. Relax in this moment and simply rest. In this state of trust, we realize that the current we once feared would engulf us is actually the very force that can guide us back to our authentic selves. Now, let's delve into a narrative about the strength of belief and the fate we shape through faith alone. This is the story of a general and the coin that unveiled the truth. A Japanese general found himself in an untenable situation. His forces were vastly outnumbered by the enemy. The landscape favored his adversaries, and by all traditional military standards, the impending battle should end in a crushing defeat. Yet, deep within him, a conviction remained that triumph was attainable. Perhaps it was intuition or a flicker of desperate hope, but he believed wholeheartedly that his cause was righteous. His soldiers, though fewer, harbored a fighting spirit that could defy the odds. The challenge lay with his troops. They were aware of the overwhelming force arrayed against them, just as he was. Fear spread through their ranks like wildfire. Doubt clouded their expressions. Conversations laced with pessimism circulated throughout the camp, and the general sense that their morale was disintegrating before the battle even began. He understood that an army that believes it is doomed will indeed face defeat. No amount of skill, superior weaponry, or numerical advantage matters when soldiers have surrendered internally. However, an army that genuinely believes in its victory can achieve seemingly impossible feats through the sheer force of that conviction. On the morning of the battle, as they marched toward their fate, the general led his men to a small religious shrine that stood alongside the path. This was a sacred spot where countless warriors had paused throughout history to pray before confronting uncertain outcomes. The general assembled his troops around him and guided them in heartfelt prayer, seeking divine favor and protection for the fight ahead. Once the prayers concluded, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple coin, raising it high so that every soldier could see it clearly. "My brothers," he proclaimed, his voice resonating across the gathered ranks, "we have prayed, and now we shall allow heaven to reveal our destiny. I will toss this coin into the air. If it lands heads, we are destined to win this battle. If it lands tails, we are fated to lose. Let us uncover what the gods have chosen for us." The soldiers drew closer, their breaths shallow with anticipation. Everything hinged on this singular moment, this one flip of metal soaring through the morning sky. The general cast the coin high, and every eye followed its trajectory as it ascended, momentarily suspended against the sky, then descended to the ground. The coin landed and lay motionless in the dust. It was heads. A cheer erupted from the soldiers, a sound that could likely be heard for miles. Those who had been grim and anxious moments earlier now laughed joyfully and embraced one another, brimming with renewed confidence. The gods had spoken. Victory was assured. Their cause was blessed by the heavens. Empowered by this divine assurance, the soldiers charged at their foes with fierce determination and coordinated force, achieving precisely what the coin had foretold. Against all odds, they secured a decisive victory, rooting forces far larger than their own and achieving a triumph that would echo through generations. After the battle, as the general walked among his jubilant troops, his lieutenant approached him, eyes wide with amazement. "General," the lieutenant exclaimed, "what an extraordinary event! The coin revealed our true destiny, just as you foretold. Surely, no human power can alter what heaven has decreed." "You are entirely correct," the general replied with a knowing smile. He reached into his pocket and produced the coin, holding it out for his lieutenant to examine closely. "No one can alter destiny." The lieutenant examined the coin and gasped. Both sides displayed heads. The Buddha once stated, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think we become." Here, we uncover the profound reality that destiny is not merely something that happens to us. It is something we forge through the strength of our beliefs and expectations. Why do we so readily accept that fate lies outside our influence when our own minds play such a pivotal role in shaping what comes to pass? Zen Buddhism teaches that while we cannot govern all external circumstances, we wield immense power over the internal conditions that dictate our responses to whatever arises. The general grasped something profound about human psychology and the essence of reality itself. He realized that his soldiers' belief in victory held greater significance than their numerical disadvantage. He understood that confidence, resolve, and fighting spirit could surpass superior numbers when those qualities were genuinely present. But here lies the deeper lesson. The general did not merely manipulate his troops through trickery. He fostered an environment that encouraged their innate courage and strength to flourish. The soldiers had the capacity to fight valiantly all along. They needed only to believe in themselves and their cause. Reflect on your own relationship with destiny and possibility. How often do you assume that outcomes are preordained, that success or failure lies beyond your control? The general's two-headed coin symbolizes the power we all possess to tilt the scales toward favorable outcomes through the nature of our engagement with life. This does not imply that we can dictate everything through positive thinking or that mere belief makes something true. The soldiers still had to engage in battle. They still needed to exhibit genuine skill and bravery. The power of belief in triumph fostered the mental conditions necessary for their finest traits to emerge. In the practice of Zen, we discover the art of balancing effort with surrender, intention with acceptance. We learn that while we cannot control every outcome, we can significantly affect the energy and focus we bring into any situation. This level of involvement often decides whether we find success or failure, independent of external factors. Zen Master Hangpa wisely stated, "The foolish dismiss what they observe, rather than what they contemplate. The wise dismiss what they contemplate, rather than what they observe." The general understood that his soldiers' perceptions of the battle held more weight than their concerns about being outnumbered. He chose to engage with the reality of psychology instead of opposing it. Take a moment to examine the various trials and opportunities in your life. Are you carrying a defeatist mindset? Are you presuming failure before fully committing? Concentrating on barriers instead of possibilities, or allowing fear to dictate your effort level? Where might you need to establish your own dual-sided coin? a practice or viewpoint that consistently guides you toward positive engagement, no matter the circumstances. The Buddha taught, "We are shaped by our thoughts. Everything we become arises from our thoughts. With our thoughts, we shape the world." This is not a call for magical thinking, but an acknowledgement of the inherent creative power of consciousness. When we approach challenges with true confidence, clarity, and dedication, we often uncover abilities we were unaware we had. As you contemplate the battles you're facing and the outcomes you desire, can you tap into your version of the general's insights? Can you foster internal conditions that enhance your highest potential rather than your deepest fears? Can you acknowledge that while destiny may be beyond your control, you have significant influence over the beliefs and attitudes that shape how it unfolds through your actions? Buddha's wisdom reminds us that a single candle can light thousands more, and its life will not be diminished. Sharing happiness does not lessen it. The general's unwavering belief ignited a flame of conviction in every soldier's heart. At times, the most impactful action we can take is to create environments that enable both ourselves and others to uncover the strength that has always been present. As we approach the conclusion of our time together, take a moment to embrace the stillness that surrounds you. Can you sense that this profound calm is not something you had to construct or grasp, but rather something you've simply permitted to emerge? This serenity you experience is your intrinsic nature, an unruffled reservoir that lies just beneath the surface of your thoughts. The Buddha once shared this gentle wisdom. Ultimately, only three things matter: how deeply you loved, how tenderly you lived, and how gracefully you released what was not meant for you. Reflect on this wisdom now. Each story we shared tonight served as a quiet lesson in the art of letting go, freeing ourselves from the burdens of past regrets, future worries, and the incessant noise of the mind. This understanding has been sown within you, a seed of awareness that will continue to flourish long after these words are gone. It's not about achieving a flawless state of mind, but about cultivating a new relationship with your experiences. Even if thoughts resurface, even if the world feels overwhelming again tomorrow, hold on to the feeling you have in this moment. The teachings from these ancient sages have illuminated a pathway back to this tranquil core, a state of being that is perpetually available. The peace you have touched is not merely a fleeting visitor, it is a lasting inhabitant of your awareness. As you prepare for a deep and restorative slumber, remember that the real lesson was not contained in the stories themselves, but in the quiet space they created within you. It is in this inner stillness that clarity emerges, allowing the body and mind to heal authentically. Carry this sense of gentle release with you as you drift off, allowing it to be the foundation of your rest and the quiet strength that welcomes you in the morning. Thank you for accompanying us on this journey at Sleepy Monk. Sleep well.